What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 32 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And wow, what a wild divisional round weekend. That was crazy. I think if there's any 49er fans who survived without having a heart attack or a stroke, because of that game, welcome back to the show. We're going to go ahead and dive right into that first. We need to talk about it. And we're going to start recapping 49ers versus Packers. Mike, I was pissed off for about 3.5 quarters here. And really for most of the game, I didn't feel confident that the 49ers were going to win this one until, I think there was a pivotal moment in the game where Brock Purdy kind of, scrambled out to the left and picked up, I want to say like 7 yards, down near, it was probably inside the 10-yard line. And it was at that moment where, I sort of thought, okay, the momentum's starting to shift back in our favor. I can kind of calm down a little bit. And I know I'm jumping to the end of the game. And really, I watched this game fully from like a fan perspective. I'm not taking notes. I want to enjoy the game and just, tell it how I experienced it as a fan. So if I jump, all over the place, bear with me. We're going to get to like key moments in the game and we might go like back and forth.
Was that moment before or after the missed field goal for the Packers? Was that the final drive?
That was the final 49er drive.
Okay, yeah. For me, it was that missed field goal. I was like, this game's over. Niners are winning this. I don't care. I know how it goes. I know that was a momentum killer. It's like the Packers could have been up. They could have gone and got a touchdown if they actually did that, right? But they didn't. If they had, the game was over. The Packers are winning this game. But they kick a field goal, and they miss. Attempt to get up 7. Instead, they stay up 4. I'm like, the only thing that's going to not give this game to the Niners is if Brock Purdy or somebody fumbles. But if Brock Purdy throws a pick or if somebody fumbles. That missed field goal, man. And then we'll get into the other games, but the Bills missing a field goal at the end of the game too. It's just like, that was a big reaction for me. It was like, okay, there's 2 divisional playoff games getting completely decimated by missed field goals. It sucks when it happens, but that's the nature of football. They were both outdoor games. What are you going to do, right?
Dude, okay, so real quick, I want to talk about this. Every single game this year, I picked the 49ers, right? But there was one game in particular, and it was against the Eagles that had a condition. Do you remember what that condition was?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your camera's frozen. Yeah, but you're good.
The rain.
This 49ers team, I don't know what it is. I don't know why Kyle Shanahan doesn't like adjust the way that they practice during the rain, but I swear I don't remember a team that is so bad in the rain. Also, Mike, if you want to click out and click back in,
keep going.
To fix it. Man, why didn't I even mention that? There was sort of talks that it was going to probably rain, during this Packers game. And I didn't even think like, oh, wow, that's going to have a huge impact on the game, because it always does with this team. I've said it several times. I feel like on this podcast, I'm like, or maybe just talking to people about the 49ers. The rain is this team's kryptonite. And then the 49ers somehow all in one game were able to survive the rain, survive Shanahan making questionable decisions throughout the entire game. Like, Shanahan always has that moment in every single playoff run where it's like, what are you doing? Run the football. What are you doing? And I was sitting there on the couch like, dude, get out of your own way. Just run the ball.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and so Shanahan didn't, I think call that great of a game. Uh, and he made questionable decisions before half to, not try and go down the field and score. But um, man, like I was just like, you're running with Juwan Jennings. You have McCaffrey. You've got Mitchell. You've got Mason. You've got Kittle. You've got Ayuk. You can you can put the ball in anyone else's hands. No disrespect to Juwan Jennings, but I've never seen him play running back, and I think he's one of the slowest wide receivers that the 49ers have. He's probably the most physical wide receiver they have and one of the best blocking wide receivers that maybe in the entire NFL. Juwan Jennings is a dog, but I don't know, man. Trying something new just kind of screamed to me like get out of your own head, Kyle. What is this? And yeah, that's one play and the play got blown up anyway. But it was just like, man, is he like what's going on up there? And then there was a design run play to Brock Purdy. Um, I think it was in the second half, and Purdy's rolling out right, and he decides to run and runs out of bounds for like a 2-yard gain, and I'm like, dude, just run, have one of your elite players just run forward. Don't run like, they were running side to side, like going off tackle runs the entire game. And it's like the quickest way to the end zone is just right up the gut. The Packers don't have that great of a run defense. And I was just like, I was melting down. I was like having a meltdown in my mind. I was pissed off the entire time. So going back to my point, Shanahan had a bad game, in my opinion. Brock Purdy had a terrible, he was also very bad. He had several interceptions that should have been picked off. One that should have gone to the house. But Brock Purdy came up in the end, and I think was like 5 of 7 or 6 of 7. I think on his last drive. This was like the Cleveland game all over again. But Jake Moody stepped up. Juwan Jennings stepped up. Dre Greenlaw stepped up. And the 49ers got it done. Oh, Diamador Lenore stepped up. He had a great game too. Yeah. You could probably hear it in my voice. I'm like fired up right now. Shanahan was making my blood pressure go through the roof. And my brother was complaining the entire time that I was being so negative. And, it is what it is. But, all right, they overcame those circumstances. And then also they were down by 5+ in the fourth quarter, which Shanahan hasn't won a game yet. They were 0-30 before that. They overcame that. They overcame the rain. And they fucking won. Excuse my French. They won.
I did take notes during the game. If you want me to go through them.
Yeah. Go for it.
In that case, we can kind of go like quarter by quarter and stuff. It shouldn't take too long. I just figured I can read them off and you can kind of react as I go.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one thing though about, and it's probably going to show up in the notes here, but that fourth quarter stat for Shanahan, it's a funny stat, and we've mentioned it multiple times this season where they have gotten behind and they end up losing the game, whether it was like the Vikings game or the Browns game or whatever game it was, or the Ravens game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like once they get behind, it's like you hit that fourth quarter. For some reason, Shanahan can't do it. I think this game was a little, I don't know, misconstrued or whatever, because they came into the fourth quarter down 7, but they were literally lining up to kick a field goal on that first play. So it's like if they had done that in the end of the third quarter, we wouldn't be talking about it, Yeah. But regardless, I mean, hey, it's a comeback nonetheless, right? So we'll get into it. The Packers start the game with 3 trips to the red zone and only get 6 points to show for it. That was huge. I think that's one of the major differences in this game. Obviously 2 field goals and one very big 4th and 1 stop. And I understood the Packers going for it. I know in our group chat, Lorenzo was like, why did they not take the points? It's like, well, I'm sure the analytics say to go for it,
Are you're talking about on the QB sneak?
Yeah, the QB sneak 4th and 1.
I thought it was a good decision to go for it. Like,
Yeah,
they were driving down the field and they just needed 1 yard. And, like, all right, no disrespect to the 49ers defensive linemen, but they've been, in recent weeks, they've been getting bullied. And we saw it in this game. They were getting, like, there were runs up the middle. So why wouldn't a QB sneak for like 1 yard, if that? They gave the 49ers, I think, a generous spot on that play where if they spotted the ball for a first down, it wouldn't have been overturned to, be a turnover on downs anyway.
right. Yeah. So long story short, 3 red zone trips for the Packers, and I think all in the first quarter, and only 6 points to show for it. Then Debo's lost early in this game with a shoulder injury, and obviously I think that was a big loss, and it may have been part of the reason why the Niners offense was kind of not quite itself early on in this game. Some could argue it was rust. I mean, Purdy's passes were kind of all over the place. I kind of blame that on the rain. But losing Debo would certainly affect the game plan, you know. And then my next 3 notes are Darnell Savage dropped interception, which was a horrible pass by Brock Purdy. That's the one you're talking about that should have been a pick 6. 1,000% dropped by Darnell Savage. Darnell Savage gives up big touchdown to Kittle. I don't know what Savage was doing. He hesitated, and Kittle, instead of cutting left or right, he just went up and did a post, and he just kept running full speed, and Savage lost him. Touchdown.
Which was a dime by Purdy.
It was a good pass. And yeah. And then Darnell Savage also gives up a later touchdown to Christian McCaffrey by missing an open field tackle. Absolutely horrible missed tackle. Darnell Savage fucked this game up for the Packers on 3 very big plays. I mean, yeah, just you take those 3 plays into consideration and you flip them the other way. Who knows, right? One play before that Christian McCaffrey touchdown, this is way up in the third quarter. George Kittle got a big first down, and on that play, I couldn't help but notice. I saw it in the corner of my eye because I'm watching Kittle. He catches the ball. He gets the first down. It was like a third down pass, whatever. And I noticed a Packers defender running out of bounds. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why isn't he going towards him and tackling him? And then I see the replay, and I see it's Juwan Jennings blocking the living shit out of this dude and throwing him into the Packers bench. Immaculate. Okay. That was awesome to see. Speaking of Juwan Jennings, he had a hell of a game. With 10 minutes left in the game, Jennings caught a beauty of a pass from Purdy. I've seen a tweet from Ted Nguyen saying that this pass was is a little lucky because the moment that Purdy, if you know what I'm talking, it's the pass where he kind of rainbow throws this thing, and Keyshawn Nixon, number 25, he jumps and he tries to get a hand on it. And I'm talking the football is this close to his fingertips. And it goes down, and Juwan Jennings is full extension catching this thing. The moment that Purdy throws this pass, Keyshawn Nixon's just standing there. He's free to go in any direction. I don't understand how this pass was completed, and yet it was. And when you watch it over, it's dude, that couldn't have been any better. But at the same time, to Ted Nguyen's point, what an insane attempt of a throw. That it was a crazy throw. I'm not saying that it was pure luck, but there had to be some for that to be completed, I think.
Yeah, so initially, I know exactly the play that you're talking about, and I'm going to pull it up in a second because Brian Baldinger does a little breakdown of I think that exact same throw. Purdy was pressured and throws it up in real time, dude. I had a heart attack. My heart stopped for a second because I'm like, oh my god, this ball is floating up there, and then just out of nowhere, Juwan Jennings comes up, rips it down, and it's a first down. Yeah. And like I said, Juwan Jennings stepped up in this game. He had a fantastic game. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring up Brian Baldinger's breakdown. Here's his @ on Twitter. It's @BaldyNFL. So Here, I'm going to start it from the beginning. That's right.
Niners are down 21-17 in the fourth quarter. It's 3rd and 10. Brock Purdy's not having a great day. The 49ers offense has been stuck in the rain. The rain hasn't stopped. You get a twist done. Kenny Clark coming up the field. Here comes Preston Smith putting a hit right there on Brock Purdy. He doesn't even see the ball. There's Keyshawn Nixon trying to get as high as he can. Can't get a fingertip on it to Juwan Jennings. Like, those are the type of throws. You see the jubilation over here by Brandon Ayuk. Like, those are the throws. You just go, man, you got to have some serious onions to make that throw in the middle of the field.
Yeah. So Brock Purdy did have some serious onions on that throw, I will say. I don't know if I would use that same exact language. I might use different way to describe it, but yeah, he had the onions. Man, so keep going on your notes.
Yep. As for the Packers offense, Matt LaFleur, in my opinion, was simply outcoaching Kyle Shanahan. And this was something I talked about last week. Matt LaFleur being a top-tier coach and a top-tier, offensive play caller, but also in his ability to game plan. He is very, very good. Some offensive play calls were just beautiful, including the 2-point conversion that got the Packers up 21-14. I was sitting there watching this game alone, just going, "Oh my God, that is how you do it. That's how you do it." And I know in our group chat this is a little off topic, but Lions game, the Buccaneers is, if you want to call it controversial, but the Buccaneers scored a touchdown late in this game against the Lions. I know, again, off topic, but maybe 4 minutes left in the game. Mike Evans touchdown, and then the Buccaneers, still down a touchdown, decide to go for 2. So they want to be down 6 instead of 7. Obviously, they don't get it. They go down 8. Baker Mayfield gets the ball, and he throws a fade back left corner of the end zone to Mike Evans. And they don't get it. No PI. I'm like, okay, well, now if you score a touchdown, you have to go for 2. What are we doing, right? And I said in our group chat, that was a dumb play call. I would rather scheme somebody open than essentially pray and do a short yardage Hail Mary, but it's one-on-one, if that makes sense. Just a little fade to Mike Evans. Like, yeah, it might work a lot of the times, but it also might not work. And then you're really digging yourself a deeper hole. Whereas Matt LaFleur, back to the Niner game, on this 2-point conversion, they go up 20-14 or 19-14. And the Packers had trips to the right, 3 receivers, right? Aaron Jones in the backfield. Fred Warner is manned up on Aaron Jones. The wide receivers all run slants to the left, right? So they take their corners with them. But in the meantime, Fred Warner's trying to get through, and the wide receivers have just built a wall between them and the defensive backs that are on them. Fred Warner cannot get through. Aaron Jones is wide open in the flat. Easy 2 points. That is scheming the guy open to a T. Absolute beauty of a play. So again, Packers go up 21-14 entering the fourth quarter. And this is where I have the stat about Shanahan being 0-30, now 1-30, when down 5+ entering the fourth quarter. 8.5 minutes left in the game. Packers up 21-17. Niners just punted. Aaron Jones gets the snap near the 10-yard line and runs 53 yards down the field. Not looking good, I put in my notes. Not looking good. 6.5 minutes left. 3rd and 9 for the Packers on the 24-yard line. The Niners send the blitz on cover 0. Incomplete pass or whatever the hell happens. Anders Carlson misses the field goal. Niners down 4. Niners get the ball, drive down the field. CMC gets the touchdown on 3rd and 1. And this is the note that I have here. LaFleur, interestingly, chose not to use any of his 3 timeouts at the end of this drive, whether it was before or after the 2-minute warning. And he lets it get down to 1 minute and 7 left. Down 24-21. They have all 3 timeouts, but they could have had 2 minutes. And then of course Jordan Love on the next drive throws a pass across the field, off his back feet into triple coverage, picked off. Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw, who wanted nothing less than a pick six for some fucking reason on this play.
Yeah.
Even the announcers are like completely neutral in this game, and they're going, "Go down, go down! What are you doing?" So
yeah, I've actually got something to share from East Bay Chris on Twitter. I love this tweet. It says, "I just drove down the 680, and Dre Greenlaw was still running around with the football. Someone tell him to go down already."
yeah, for real.
Yeah, that made me crack up when I saw it. Shout out to Chris. Man, yeah. Shanahan, I think, talked about it today, and apparently, I guess they weren't too hard on Dre Greenlaw, but he mentioned that Dre Greenlaw learned his lesson and will go down next time. So I don't know what that means, but I think Greenlaw, mentioned something before the game that Fred Warner said that they needed a pick six. If you just go down, the game is over. If you get the pick six, I think the Packers might have a better chance of winning the game if there's a pick six because they would be getting the ball back after, and
Yeah,
then
and then they could
score a quick touchdown. Like you put the ball back in their hands, like
right. They could get an onside kick.
I love the effort, and Dre Greenlaw, you were the player of the game. You got 2 interceptions in this game, and you really made the whole difference in the ball game. Please, next time. I mean, it sounds like you're going to do it. Go down for just the sake of like securing the victory. You made the play. It was fantastic.
Yep.
And then one thing I want to say about LaFleur saving the timeouts, I don't think it was the worst thing in the world because the last thing that LaFleur, I think, wants to do is be using the timeouts to benefit the 49ers and have them, be able to catch their breath because they're an older team going against a younger team. If anything, you want to conserve those timeouts. Maybe the 49ers don't score. Maybe they do score. And then that way you understand that when you have the ball on offense, yeah, there's a minute left, but there's a minute 7 left, I think you said. There's plenty of time to drive down the field with the 3 timeouts, especially with the way the 49ers play defense. They really play soft coverage and allow, players to just they allow the wide receivers to get the ball, but they're not going to let you beat them over the top. So, the quick I think one of the first plays was like a quick throw to the receiver on a curl route, on the left side. I don't know which receiver it was because again, the Packers have like a great wide receiver room, whereas they don't have like Devontae Adams anymore being like the dominant, X receiver. But oh my God, that ending was just like, it didn't feel like we won the game. It felt like we survived. It really felt like the 49ers, like everything was just going against them in this game and they survived. And that's all that matters in the playoffs. A win is a win, no matter how you get it. The 49ers are alive for at least one more week.
Yeah, I think between the way that the Packers were playing, the way that they game planned, the weather, being rainy, Purdy having, some inaccuracy issues, like I said, I think because of the rain. There was literally a play where he was drying his hand mid-pass or, play. As he's holding the ball with his left hand, he's drying his throwing hand, and then he puts it back and throws. It's like, it's clear that the rain was affecting him. Then you lose Debo again. They had a lot of stuff going against them. But I think at the end of the day, what happened was the Niners' top-end roster, I don't want to call it saved itself, but made up for maybe being outcoached.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would put it,
Yeah, I think it's no question that the 49ers, or at least Kyle Shanahan, was outcoached in this game. They looked like a team that, they went into the game with not playing much football in the past 3 weeks. And, maybe Purdy was a little bit rusty going into the game with that throw that he made to Darnell Savage that should have been intercepted. But like I said, the 49ers survived. They battled and they overcame almost every adversity that I think that could have gone wrong against the 49ers all in one game. Like, Debo got hurt. They're 0-3 this year without Debo. Debo went down in the Cleveland game, and then it was raining in that one. So, this was like the Cleveland game, like I said, all over again with a different outcome. Jake Moody stepped up, made the field goal this time, and 49ers drove down the field, won it. Yeah, that game still just has me my blood pressure still gets elevated thinking about that game. And, I'm not going to lie, I feel a little less confident about the 49ers going forward than I did before the game. But, really anything can happen any given week. And the 49ers can very well return to playing 49er football. And another thing, where was Kyle Juszczyk in this game? I didn't even notice him at all. I feel like there was a lot of empty backfields, and, I would have loved to see the 49ers just take it to the Packers, directly. I don't know what that was all about, but hopefully the 49ers can step it up. Maybe Kyle Shanahan just has one game every single playoff run every year where he just has a meltdown. Maybe it's one game every year, and Shanahan will just return to normal going forward. He got it out of the way, a little bit of the yips, but maybe he'll be fine now. I'm only praying. And, to just cap off the Packers recap, this is getting ridiculous. Get down, Dre. Shout out to East Bay Chris again.
Sources say he's still running with the football.
Yeah. Legend has it, if you really listen, you can hear the fans screaming, "Get down, Dre. Get down." You even see there's even an angle where John Lynch is in the background. There's an angle. They got John Lynch, "Go down."
Yeah.
He's on the sideline. Dude.
Yeah, you just know Greenlaw had tunnel vision. He's only looking at the other guys. Who's going to tackle me? Trying not to get tackled, but he needs to be looking at his teammates oh, go down. Oh, slide.
Dude, yeah. Okay, so you know how in recent 49er playoff history, there's always a moment in every postseason run where that loses the 49ers the game. What if Dre Greenlaw, just out of nowhere, doesn't see the guy behind him, knocks it out, the Packers get the ball after that, and and score, and the 49ers lose the game? That would be the moment. That would have been the moment. But it didn't happen, so we don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's get to some comments real quick. Joel says, "What it do?" Joel, thank you again for tuning back in. We appreciate you coming to the Niners side of the show. We'll get to some Raider talk later. And then Pia's dad says, that's a play that they practice. I think this is talking about the Juwan Jennings play. That's a play that they practice a lot. And if you look, it's used in, lots of plays. And I think he also says that same play was done a couple times and it was overthrown at least two times. I'll try and look for it and send it to you. Yeah. Mr. C, send it to me and, I'll take a look at it.
Maybe if it was overthrown, maybe he's talking about the Purdy to Juwan Jennings play, or
I think it was the Purdy to Juwan Jennings play, because I think that's when I noticed those comments popped up. So, Joel says it was surprising to see the Packers run all over the Niners. Honestly, I don't know if I'd say surprising.
Well, that's scary because of who you're facing next week, but. I wouldn't say the Niners or the Packers ran all over the Niners. I would say they got a few chunk plays, but when it mattered, like the 4th and 1 stop, the Niners got the stops. It was, I think I read that Aaron Jones maybe had 115 total yards. And bear in mind, he had 53 on one carry. So he was getting stopped here and there. There was also that other guy, number 31. I don't even know his name because it wasn't A.J. Dillon. I think he was out
I
for
think it
this
was
game.
Wilson.
Maybe, but there was
I think
one
his
play.
name was Wilson.
The drive leading up to the missed field goal, I thought the Packers were doing it, dude. I was really like, oh my God, because there were like 2 plays in a row where they ran the ball, and maybe this is what Joel's talking about, or Joel, with that number 31 guy, where there was one run to the left, he got like maybe 7 yards. Then he did a run to the right, and he hurdled somebody. And I don't know what it is about hurdling. I was like, that's a momentum like play.
Yeah.
Like now the Packers are like, oh hell yeah. But then they get stopped, kick the field goal, miss, momentum shattered. So yeah.
Yeah, I still was on the edge of my seat. I didn't know that they were going to win, but apparently you did.
No, as a Niner fan, I wouldn't expect you to be in there like, oh, they missed the field goal, we're winning. Like you're going, oh, that gives us a really good shot. For me, I was like, they just missed that field goal. I know this Niners roster. They have McCaffrey. They have Trent Williams. They still have Brandon Ayuk on the field. Purdy. They're going to get it done. They're just going to. And if they
Brandon
don't...
Ayuk...
Go ahead.
Finish your thought? My bad.
Well, if they don't, it was probably going to be because of a turnover, which isn't guaranteed to be because of the team. It's probably because of the weather. I don't know. And that could be the reason why, you wouldn't be confident. But I was just like, if they go and score this and they don't give the Packers time, this thing's over. And the Packers end up with 1 minute left. Jordan Love's out there again, scrambling all over the place in the final drive because he doesn't have enough time. Throws an errant throw and boom.
Mm-hmm.
But
Brandon Ayuk was like quiet for most of this game, and then he also had this one play that was dropped, but he immediately made up for it. I think on the same series on like a key 3rd down where Purdy threw it at Ayuk's shoelaces, and Ayuk was just able to catch it with no problem. Like he made it look easy, but that's a tough catch. And then there was another play where Ayuk had to make like a diving catch that was also a great play. And you see a lot of plays like that in the NFL where a lot of times the guys, they get the ball and then the ball hits the ground and moves a little bit and they call it back. But Ayuk, for most of the season, I feel like has been very consistent in keeping the ball, keeping his arms under the ball. So, it was a great play. But
hey, it was a great game. Oh, I'll say that much. Crazy game.
There's no reason why it should have been that kind of game. I blame Kyle Shanahan for that. Just run the ball. Run the ball.
Yeah.
You have the Packers.
If the Packers
number one
done,
rushing offense, come on.
Yeah. If the Packers had beaten you guys, a week after doing what they did to the Cowboys, it would have just been like, oh, who are they?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit,
And then the Packers had already beaten the Lions. Maybe the Packers would have went on to the Super Bowl. You never know. They are a hot football team.
Yeah, that was 100% a thought in my head because I was like, I expect the Lions to beat the Bucs. They did.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a divisional matchup. That's like if the Chargers faced off against the Chiefs. It'd be like, oh, it could go either way,
Yeah. So, real quick, I forgot to finish my thought or like my final thought on this comment. So I saw somewhere, or at least I heard somewhere, I think I was listening to Rob Stats Guerrera and Vish Kumaran. They were talking about the 49er game against the Packers. And I guess by some metric, or maybe the stats just dictate this, the 49ers have the number 1 run defense in the NFL, maybe in like yards given up. That's probably it. And on paper they are, and Vish absolutely acknowledges this. On paper they are, but if you watch the games, there's a reason why the 49ers have such a good run defense, and it's because of the way that the game changes when the 49ers are up. This 49ers team, I feel like their vulnerabilities are like the short passing game and the rushes, honestly, like any kind of rushing attack, but a lot of teams when they play the 49ers, their offense has to keep up with the Niners or the game's just going to slip away from them. You can't just keep running the ball against this 49er team when they're up by multiple scores on you. The Niners play like a really tough brand of football where it's like, they're going to get ahead and they're going to stay ahead. and you have to make plays. And, most of the time Purdy's not going to turn the ball over. You have to make plays to try and win the game, but it's like a chess match and they checkmate you every single time. It's like, we'll give you the run, but if you're going to run, you're going to run out the clock. So,
Yep.
yeah. And then Joel also says, Packers are a young team, man. They're a problem if they keep playing like that. Yeah. If you give them some actual pieces going forward, they have a pretty good core of wide receivers right now. What happened?
No, it's not breaking news. I'll just try to show this on the screen. It's from Dov Kleinman. No, it's not even real. No. It's a joke, but it's probably true. I was going to say this later, but this is about the Niners and Lions game. Mm-hmm. I thought it was real, but it says a map of who America is rooting for. You know what, though? It kind of feels like, okay. I'm sorry for
we'll get to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So before we get into that, I want to jump into our next topic, which is the Tom Brady report. So this morning there was a report, JPA Football on Twitter, brought up this. I guess there's an ESPN article that talks about the 49ers. It's a rumor, but the 49ers tried getting Tom Brady out of retirement to be their starter this season, and even told Brock Purdy that he would be the backup for this, for the year if they got Brady, per ESPN. Early in the offseason, Niners coach Kyle Shanahan sat down with Purdy and assured him that if he was healthy, he would be the starter unless Brady wanted to play one more season for his hometown Niners. And really, I'm just confused at the timing of this. Why are we hearing about this now? Why didn't we hear about it months ago when even during the season? How about when Purdy was, playing really well? Why it just kind of feels like there is an onslaught of media coverage or reports that are just trying to degrade Brock Purdy. The other day, Amy Trask, former Raider executive, said that out of all the quarterbacks left in the playoffs, I think there were 7 good quarterbacks, and then there was Brock Purdy, which I thought it was pretty disrespectful to Brock Purdy. And every other quarterback was a first-round pick, and Purdy was a 7th-round Mr. Irrelevant pick, but I think Purdy's been playing at a very high level this season, and a lot of people make their judgments based on the games that they've seen, and maybe they've seen a game or two where Purdy has struggled or maybe made a bad throw here and there, but I feel like the overwhelming opinion on Brock Purdy is just that he's another Jimmy Garoppolo. And while I feel like sometimes 49er fans take it to the extreme and sort of try to paint the picture that Brock Purdy is on the same tier as Patrick Mahomes, which he's not. Same tier as Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, which he's not. I don't think that Brock Purdy is anywhere near the talent level, just from the eye test of Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo, every single game you could count on him to, every single play was at the line of scrimmage. All the passes, it was everything was a screen, and Shanahan doesn't dial it up the same way, for Brock Purdy than he would Jimmy Garoppolo. There are actual, progressions that Brock Purdy gets through. And if you look at the touchdown pass to Kittle, Purdy's doing that on the run outside the pocket. I feel like I don't think Garoppolo makes that play, and maybe that was just Garoppolo sort of, regressing more and more every year. But, I don't know, Mike, I want to know your take, because you probably do see, the comments that people make about Brock Purdy. And I'm a 49er fan, so I'm a little bit biased. I like Purdy. But I'm willing to admit Purdy's not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But
right.
A lot of people think that Purdy is just garbage. You know what I mean? And that he's only good because of his supporting cast. I don't think that's the only reason why he's good. So I want you to give me your take on Purdy, and then just the whole Tom Brady news coming out today.
Okay, let me go with Brady first. Actually, can you scroll up a little bit about for the report and who this is from? This is rumors, JPA football. Okay, per ESPN. I remember seeing maybe almost a month ago, there's this thing about Brady saying, maybe he put it on his Instagram, he was planning to come out of retirement to join a team, a very specific team, until he went home and found himself enjoying a surprise retirement party that his family was throwing. And then he was like, well, that's it. That's that then, and didn't go to whatever team that was. The immediate thought for me was that was the Raiders. That was Josh McDaniels. That was before they got Garoppolo. And that has been the report, is that Josh McDaniels wanted Brady. Once they couldn't get Brady, they got Garoppolo. That was apparently their big plan for this season. I don't know if that's true. It could very well be that it was the Niners. The Niners also make sense. That's been a long-going rumor, is that Brady wanted to be a Niner. And playing on that roster makes a fuckload of sense. He would certainly win a Super Bowl, in my opinion. I don't think he'd have as much zip as Brock Purdy does, throwing the ball, but I know one thing about Brady, he's one of the smartest quarterbacks ever, right? So it could have worked, but at the end of the day, I kind of look at this as a rumor, and I don't think until somebody like Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or some big insider comes out and says, yeah, or Tom Brady comes out and says, yeah, it was the Niners or it was the Raiders that I was almost going to go to. Until somebody like that says so, I'm not going to really buy in too hard on which team it was, and also the way that Purdy played last year. I mean, if he doesn't get hurt in the championship, it's very likely that the Niners go to the Super Bowl last year. Why would Shanahan go away from that? I understand that Brady's Brady, but you really want to do that to Purdy? The only reason I could see it is because look at what happened to the Niners coming off the elbow, but also look at what happened to them last year where they lost their starter and they had nobody else behind him to do it. If you get Brady, it's like, all right, we're going to ride Brady, and if he gets hurt, we have Purdy right in the wing, Okay, I can see that. Just as much as I could see the Raiders and Josh McDaniels being like, this is my fucking plan. But regardless, I don't know. So as far as Purdy and the public's perception of him, I think the best way I could put it is it's like what's that called? What's the term for very bold takes, big take, hot takes?
Hot take.
Right? You have to have a hot take in today's media, right? That's how guys like Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. Smith thrive. And I think for some reason, Purdy is at the epicenter of hot takes. It's either he's the best ever or he fucking sucks. And this is just something for me on life. I notice this with everything. It could be any topic you want to bring up. Everybody wants to treat everything like it's black or white. It is not black or white. There's a whole lot of gray in the middle, right? To me, that's where Brock Purdy is. He's in the gray, okay? I'm not going to say that he's great. I'm not going to say that he sucks, because from what I'm seeing, I'm actually watching their games because I live in the local area to watch their games. He doesn't suck, okay? They're in the championship for a reason. Not just him, but he's making some throws that are not many other quarterbacks this year are making. You could probably put maybe 10 other quarterbacks on that list on throws made. I'm not saying that he's not top 10. I'm just saying maybe 10 other quarterbacks can make some of the throws that he's made this year. But I think when you add in, the talent around him, yeah, that's an aspect, but a lot of these quarterbacks that are great have talent around them. You know, it's a little silly to say that's why he sucks. That's just like, okay, but he still has to make the throw. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, this wide receiver can make a great catch, or this tight end can do this, and this running back can do all this, but he still has to make the throw and make the reads and all this. I just I think he's making good decisions. He's making good throws. He's winning. And the only things that you can really say, like for a matter of fact, about him that are negative are, if you want to call this negative, his supporting cast, as far as, offensive weapons. And this one is probably stronger for me than the supporting cast, his head coach. And we've heard for many years that Shanahan has this quarterback-friendly system. Okay, if that's true, then maybe that's part of the reason why he's playing good. But at the end of the day, he's supposed to make those throws. And I guess the way that I feel about this is, until Brock Purdy is no longer attached to the hip of Kyle Shanahan as a play caller, we're not going to know whether or not Brock Purdy is great or bad, right? It's like Joe Montana leaving Bill Walsh and going to the Chiefs. And if Joe Montana sucked, then you could say, oh, well, see, it was all Bill Walsh. But Joe Montana went to the Chiefs and almost took him to a Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, that's not an apples to apples comparison, because Bill Walsh was no longer the coach of the 49ers when Joe Montana won his 4th Super Bowl. It was George Seifert. Okay. So, he was still able to play without Bill Walsh. But
yeah, but it's
but look at Brady. Look at Brady. Brady left Bill Belichick and won.
Right. So people have dog shitted on Belichick because, now without Brady, he sucks, and Brady wins, so it means that Belichick sucks. It's like, well, no. Everything culminates to win, but if you take those things away from Purdy, can he still win? The way that he's playing tells me yes, but I won't know that until he's away from all those things, right? That's all I'm saying. I was just oversimplifying with the
Montana
Walsh and Montana thing. I'm not comparing him to Montana. I'm simplifying. But I think at the end of the day, the best way for me to explain this is, everybody wants a black or white answer to these things, when really there's a whole lot of gray area going on that you need to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. And then so, like, part of the reason why I bring up like the Brady report is because, like, just sort of the timing of this, and like, this morning on ESPN, I don't know which show it was, Ryan Clark was just saying, oh, I'm just glad that we don't have to, be idiots and pretend that Brock Purdy was an MVP candidate, or, something along those lines. And, I'm just like, all right, think about if the 49ers did acquire Tom Brady. And I want everyone at home, just if you're watching this, you can close your eyes, just envision this. Imagine that Tom Brady is the quarterback of the 49ers right now, and he has the exact same season that Brock Purdy just had, same exact stats, maybe does it a little bit differently because, Brady's up there in age, has the same stats. I think Tom Brady wins another MVP. And I don't think you can give the MVP to anyone else. But, just because it's Brady, and there's no question on whether or not it was, system or blah, blah, blah. Nobody would say shit about the supporting cast, because it's Brady. But the fact that it's Purdy, there has to be a reason why he's playing well. So, I don't know. There's always going to be, like the double standard, I think. And the thing about double standards is, yes, Tom Brady has earned the right to get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to awards like that. But, I just think that people, like Mike said, need to take things not as such black or white, and sort of try to find the gray area where it's like, yeah, maybe this is true, but also this is true. So, yeah, that's really all I wanted to say about the Brady report. We can move on, but I want to get to Joel's comment because Joel has a great comment, I think, and he says the Brock Purdy slander is annoying, to be honest. People come at him for everything. The kid makes good plays. I agree, and like he did not play well against the Packers, and it was a nationally televised game, so people are going to remember that game. He did not play well against the Ravens. He had 4 interceptions. That was a nationally televised game. Now, the rest of the 49er games where he's lighting it up, that's not going to get brought up on most of the people. And, it's like, I've been hearing this thing a lot recently where people have said, America loves an underdog story, except for Brock Purdy. There just seems to be this like urge to sort of bash on Purdy, and I hope that Brock Purdy is tuning everything out because he absolutely does not need to be listening to it. I don't think it's productive at all. Even if it like starts, if he thinks it's fueling him, just do whatever you've been doing, whatever has gotten you there when you had no expectations, and just keep playing football. If you listen to the noise, eventually it might creep in, and you might start having, some second thoughts. Like when you're playing bad, it's going to amplify, and you're going to get into your own head and say, you know what? Imposter syndrome is a real thing, dude. It's like you might start thinking, am I really like not that good? Or, are these people right? Just don't pay attention to it at all. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. You hear that, Michael? It's not worth it.
Yep.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on. And we are going to be recapping our playoff predictions from, last week, for the divisional round that just, concluded, the other day. You got something you want to bring up, Mike?
No.
I see you smiling. Yeah.
No.
And then we're going to be putting our prediction for the AFC Championship game, and then we'll do a more formal 49ers versus Lions preview, and then we'll get into the Raiders stuff. So real quick, I'm going to bring up the spreadsheet that I have here on the playoffs of Mike and I's picks. So for the divisional round, we were almost flawless, right? Mike and I both thought that the Ravens were going to pull out that game against the Texans, which they did. They were the home team. Lamar took over that game. The Ravens looked nice. 49ers narrowly squeaked out a victory against the Packers. And then the Lions, it was a pretty close game against the Buccaneers. But
the Lions kind of separated at the end, and the Buccaneers tried to come back.
Lions separated at the end, but it was too little too late for the Buccaneers. And now we get to the interesting game. Mike and I both had different picks for the Chiefs versus Bills game. And on this show last week, for whatever reason, Mike picked the Chiefs and I picked the Bills. But I decided, you know what? I think the night before the game, I sent a text to Mike. And I was already like right about to go to sleep, but I was just thinking about it. I was like, I could see some Mahomes magic going on. So I was like, hey Siri, send text message. Oh, hold on, my freaking phone just went off. Send text message to Michael saying, I think I'm gonna switch my pick to the Chiefs, but I'll let you know in the morning, or at sometime before game time. So I switched my pick, and then Mike decided, hey, I'm going to switch my pick too. And Mike just wanted to root for who he wanted in the AFC Championship. And I asked him why, because I was on the fence, and then I chose the other side. I'm like, You know what? I'm going to the other side. And Mike's like, yeah, this side sucks. I'm going to the other side. It got in my head. I was like, oh man,
right.
I
think we got in each other's heads, but I will also do this or say this. the outcome of this game is exactly why I switched my pick, because I fully expected a close game. I actually expected it to be lower scoring. And I figured it was going to come down to the final, drive, whoever had the ball last was going to win the game. That's the way that I felt. And I was like, I'm literally 50-50 on who's going to win. I'm going to feel way better if I pick the Bills and they win than picking the Chiefs. If you watched last week's episode, I was pretty adamant, like, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. And they did. But I knew the Bills very well could. And you take away a very stupid fake punt attempt with Damar Hamlin trying to play the what do you call it? Make-A-Wish Foundation, touchdown play. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking there. Dude, imagine if they tackled him and he just stayed down.
Oh fuck. No, but you know what? Somebody like I saw mention I think Sean McDermott thought that the NFL worked like a Disney movie, right? When he called the fake punt for Damar Hamlin.
Dude, it's not like it was 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. It was like 4th and 6. It was like, what are we doing?
It wasn't just that they ran the fake to Damar Hamlin. No disrespect to Damar Hamlin. It's a great story that, he was able to return to play to football after, what happened to him, that, suffering cardiac arrest on the field. I'm really glad that he's healthy. Mike's very glad that he's healthy, right? Right, Mike?
Yeah. I wasn't trying to make a morbid joke just for laughs. It's just,
but
I was like, of all people to do a fake punt with. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, calling a fake punt and not getting it, that's the type of play that will lose you the game right there.
Yeah.
That'll lose you the game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I think the major difference in this game, other than the fake punt, which obviously the Chiefs get the ball, and 3 plays later, it was long run from Isaiah Pacheco, another little short pass, and then Mahomes throws it to, I don't even know who the hell it was, and I think it was Micah Hyde punched out the ball at the 1-inch line, and it goes out of the end zone. Touchback. Yep. So the Bills get the ball. I was like, oh my God, they just got gifted. Because if the Chiefs were up 3 or 4 at that point, it was if they score another touchdown, this game's going to be over. This game's way too tight to be, down 2 possessions. But I think the other big difference in this game, and the end of the game proved it for me, was the Chiefs' defense. I feel like the Bills couldn't stop the train that was the Chiefs' very slow offense, whereas the Chiefs were stopping the Bills in multiple points of the game, especially late. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. I really did not want to see the Chiefs in the championship. It just makes me feel way more
bitter,
strong. Yeah, well, bitter, but okay, it's once we get to the divisional round of playoffs, it's all right, here we go. This is it, and then you get to the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship. It's that's when it kicks in for me of oh, these are the teams that have the shot of winning the Super Bowl. Okay, who do I want to do it? This is the round where I really choose, who do I want to see in the Super Bowl? Who do I not mind winning the Super Bowl? Right? I have a team that I'm rooting exceptionally hard for. I have another team that I am rooting exceptionally hard for. And I'll explain it once we get there, which I think now is probably the time.
Well, let's give a prediction for the AFC Championship before we move on to the Lions versus 49er game. Yeah. But Chiefs and Ravens. Oh, the reason why I switched my pick to the Chiefs too, not just the Mahomes magic aspect of it, but I really feel like the Chiefs showed in their game against the Dolphins that their offense was playing well again, and that was in bad weather. And I just felt man, wouldn't it be a thing if the Chiefs just all of a sudden figured out their offense and put it together with that defense? I kind of felt, the way they were moving the ball in that game, I felt the Chiefs are kind of back. They had consistency in that game. It was probably the best that their offense, or the most consistent that their offense had looked all season. So I figure maybe they can replicate it against the Bills, and they sort of did. Like, they put up like what, 27 points, 24?
I think
I think it was 20.
27.
Yeah, 27 points. And then that poor kicker for the Bills is never going to be able to show his face at the Bills, like at a Bills game ever again. Like, oh man, nobody is ever going to forget that. That's one of the tragedies of like the NFL. Like, if you've ever seen Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, they talk about that kicker that missed for the Dolphins. And I don't even know if, I'm pretty sure that was based off of a true event. Like, there was a kicker, something about laces out. I don't know if like everything in that movie was real, even including the name of the player, but like, it's just one of those things where you just get remembered. Like,
the double doink, Cody Parkey.
Yeah,
Bears.
the double doink. If you look at any compilation of like, crazy endings to football games, there's that play where I think the Saints came back against the Jaguars and they scored the game tying touchdown, and then where they were like just laddering the ball. Yeah, what should have been the game tying touchdown, and then they missed the extra point. The game was over, and then
Blair Walsh for the Vikings against the Seahawks in like the divisional round. Might have been like 2012. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That was another big one.
Anders Carlson missing against the 49ers.
They had the lead at least in that one. It's not like they were, it's not like he was kicking it to gain the lead or like to win the game. Whereas some of these other kicks that we're talking about, those were like game winners that were missed. Anders Carlson, like his miss was like for bona fide insurance of like, we're not going to lose this game by a field goal. And then they end up missing. It's like, we just lost this game by a field goal.
Yeah. There's one play in particular, and I'm sure you remember this play, but in 2019, the 49ers played the Seahawks for the first time. I think the Niners were 8-0 and the Seahawks might have been 7-1, 7-2, something like that. Probably 7-1 makes more sense, or 6-2, just something along those lines. And it was a Monday Night Football game, and Chase McLaughlin lines up for the game-winning field goal because Robbie Gould was out with a hamstring injury or something, or a groin injury, and Chase McLaughlin just shanks it. It was nowhere close. Yeah. People don't forget game-losing field goals, or like, losing the game on a field goal.
Yeah, especially in the playoffs. That is tough. And that's why I said I tweeted it and I sent it in the group chat. Not the tweet, but I texted it. I don't know if there's anything worse than a playoff game at the end of the game getting determined by a missed field goal. Like, that just sucks because it's like the team did all they could to go and score those points that they are trying to earn, and then one guy just shanks the boot and you don't get the points. It's like, well, that just kind of sucks. Whether or not I'm rooting for the team, it's like, damn, dude, I was rooting hard for the Bills, So seeing him miss it, I was just like, great. The Chiefs just got gifted a fucking another game. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, poor Josh Allen, he played his ass off in that game, dude. I don't know if he could have played really that much better. Like, aside from maybe a couple, missed reads maybe towards the end of the game, but Josh Allen is so special, dude. When he is playing well, I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback play better.
Yeah. They had that play on like second down. It was like 2nd and 9, and it was in the red zone. And Chris Jones just walked the left tackle right into him right as he threw the pass. And he got bumped right as he threw it, and he ends up throwing the pass inaccurately. But the receiver that he was throwing to was like, he had a step, if not 2 steps in the corner that was on him. It's like, if he doesn't get bumped, it's probably a touchdown. Bills go up by 4, so long as their fucking kicker doesn't miss the extra point. And the Chiefs have, I think, a minute and a half or something to go and score a touchdown. right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, the game goes as the game goes. But
And apparently it was very windy too.
yeah, it did seem like it was windy. Although I watched the replay of the kick, it's like the moment the kicker, whatever his name is, Bass, kicks the ball, it's like there was no wind on those flags. So I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
But
anyways, let's pick a winner for the Ravens Chiefs game. Do you want to go first, Mike?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with I think it's my gut and my heart here. It's the Ravens. I think they are the best team. I think they're the hottest team right now, point blank. They are the hottest team in football right now, and I don't see it for the Chiefs. I don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I do, but for the love of God, I hope the Ravens continue their streak of just being the best team in football, get it done, get to the Super Bowl, and then we'll talk about that when we get there.
Mm-hmm. I was really thinking about this pick earlier because, the Chiefs are finally clicking on offense, and they've won 2 Super Bowls in the last couple of years. They are, they have an opportunity to be, a dynasty to be remembered in the NFL. And, really, I feel like even 20 years from now, we'll still remember, man, the Chiefs were really good, in the Mahomes era. That offense was unstoppable, this, that, and the other. This is probably the best defense that they've had since, Mahomes has taken over at quarterback. And, they're going up against the Ravens. I think the Ravens defense is so good, dude. So good. And I feel like Lamar, there were questions about playoff Lamar. I think he just shut down all those questions. Lamar played like Lamar last week. He was doing it all. And
yeah,
while I could see the Chiefs grinding out a victory in this game, I just cannot pick the Chiefs. And it really kills me to bet against Mahomes because you never want to do that. And I almost did it last week, but you never want to do that. But that defense of the Ravens is ferocious. They are vicious. They will get after you. They are the type of defense that can and might win a championship this year. So I'm going to go ahead and also pick the Ravens because I feel like I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs win, but you can't bet against that home team,
Yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 teams that I am rooting hard for, and the Ravens are one of them. I desperately need the Chiefs to not be in this fucking Super Bowl. For the love of God, keep them away. They've already gone way too far. They shouldn't be here in the championship. Ravens, put them out, please. And I do not want to see Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl. For the love of God, keep me away from that. Oh my God, dude. I'm sure the Usher halftime show is going to be whatever, but the amount of screen time that Taylor Swift is going to get if she's in the Super Bowl is absolutely ridiculous. I'd rather be watching commercials.
Yeah, some people watch the Super Bowl just for the commercials, and I don't understand it. The commercials aren't as good as they used to be.
Oh, they're not even close. But this year, if she is there because the Chiefs are in the game, I would rather be watching shitty commercials.
Mm-hmm. So here's what I'll say. As a 49er fan, I would rather the Chiefs win this game for 2 reasons. One, either way, it will be a Super Bowl rematch, between the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? Or, whoever the 49ers get to play if they advance to the Super Bowl, which is not a given. The 49ers could lose to the Lions this week. But if there's any shot of a Super Bowl rematch that I would want to have, the Ravens one, demolished me when I was 12 or 13 years old. I was so sad when it happened. I was so down. And really the Chiefs one, I was sad too. I don't think it hurt as much, but I was just quiet the whole rest of the night. I don't even think I said one word after the game was over. I don't think I said anything. I just went to bed. You know, I was just quiet because I thought the Niners were going to win that game. I feel like it's a little bit different. While the Ravens game hurt me more as a Niner fan, than the Chiefs one did, I think this 49ers team has more of a bone to pick, I think, with the Chiefs, because the core of players on this team played against, the Chiefs back a couple of years ago. And I think a great story would be if the 49ers ran it back against the Chiefs and beat them, especially since they're the reigning Super Bowl champions too. So I mean, either way, we don't know if the 49ers will get that far. My other reason would also be, I think the Chiefs are a more vulnerable team than the Ravens are. And I'll give you a bonus reason. Every single day or every single game or week that we did this podcast, there was like several week stretch where I told you if the season, if the 49ers played the Chiefs today, the Niners would beat the Chiefs. I don't know if I feel that, so strongly about that anymore. I kept saying, remember, it might be different towards the end of the season where the Niners might potentially get to play against the Chiefs. But I do remember almost every week, I'm like, all right, I feel like the Niners would clearly beat the Chiefs. I don't feel they would clearly beat them, but I would like to see what would happen if they did play, So I know you would absolutely vomit at another, you called it a mustard and ketchup bowl, right? Or ketchup and mustard bowl. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it. And really, I mean, let's go ahead and get into the 49ers versus Lions preview. I'll just go out and say it. Whoever wins this game, I'm rooting for all the way. I want them to win it all because I don't hate the Lions. The Lions are a tremendous story. They are a team that has been historically bad forever. And if they beat the 49ers, they absolutely deserve to move on and go win the Super Bowl. That being said, I am not rooting for the Lions this week. I want them to lose. I want the 49ers to win. What a tragedy, what a travesty it would be if Dan Campbell just shows up out of nowhere. Amidst, Kyle Shanahan's been building up this 49er team for several years. And I keep being told he's a genius. He's this, that. He's going to get his Super Bowls. Kyle Shanahan has more than enough weapons to get it done. More than enough weapons to get it done. It's time to win the Super Bowl, Kyle. In order to do that, you have to beat the Lions first. If Dan Campbell comes in here after, just a couple of years ago being a poverty franchise and goes on and does it before you do it, that's such a bad look, Kyle. One thing that I find interesting about this matchup, not even just about the game on the field, it's the overarching, it's the disparity between kind of the old school type of coaching versus the new school. I feel like Dan Campbell kind of strikes me as an old school, I don't know if this is a bad term to use, but like a football guy, kind of, people say meathead, he is a guy that's going to put it all out on the line. He's going to make everyone believe in themselves in the locker room. Whereas Shanahan kind of, in my opinion, represents a new style of football where everything is, I don't think Shanahan is even analytics driven. There's certain coaches where I feel like they play a lot of analytical style, kinds of games. And it's not even just in football, it's in many sports. And it drives me nuts. There's a human aspect to it. And that's what I like about Dan Campbell. If he would have listened to analytics, he might have beat the Cowboys, a couple of weeks ago. instead of going for it, going for 2 from the 7-yard line. Dan Campbell's the kind of coach where he takes risks, and those risks will either, no matter what, I think his players respect it. But they're the type of risk that can lose you a ball game, but also they could catch a team off guard and be the reason why you win a ball game.
I think what you're saying right now is essentially, to me, like the major difference, and there are many, but the major difference between Dan Campbell, and I just fucking lost his name, the Chargers' old coach.
The Chargers' old coach, Brandon Staley?
Brandon Staley, thank you, yes. Because Staley was widely known for going for it on 4th down, like, as much as humanly possible, and they just continued to not get it. And they would just bury themselves in a hole, whereas Dan Campbell goes for it on 4th and 1, 4th and 2 a lot. I think there was a play early on this season where they went for it on like 4th and 7, and they got it, and it was like a running back draw to David Montgomery. It was like, the fucking balls on this guy. They just do it. And I think what you're saying is, the what is it that Antonio Pierce is with the Raiders? Jesus Christ. He has his players bought in. Okay. Mm-hmm. The culture. Jesus. Dan Campbell has a culture. Chargers don't. Mm-hmm. Right? And being bought in, practicing, you also have Ben Johnson, which helps, but they're able to execute way better because they are bought in, because of their culture, because of their fight, their grit, right? They have it on their hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Lions compared to the Chargers for me.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say it's almost a battle, the head coaching battle itself is almost a battle of brains versus brawn, And, obviously these guys aren't like fighting, but the game of football is a war on the field. Dan Campbell, Kyle Shanahan's got to be prepared for Dan Campbell to take risks because he's going to take risks in this game. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a fake punt, if there's, some sort of fake. Dan Campbell is notorious for this. He does things that Kyle Shanahan wouldn't ever think about doing. But Kyle Shanahan, I swear, knows how to call a game probably better than Dan Campbell could ever think of calling a game. Right? So that's really, I guess, what I'm trying to say in the differences between the coaching styles. But Dan Campbell, if I had to bet, he will motivate his guys to run through brick walls. I really feel like the team chemistry aspect to the Lions, I feel like they're really all bought in. They really feel like they're in together, playing for one another, whereas the Niners also feel that way, but maybe I feel like there's just some sort of magical feeling that I get about Detroit, this year. And maybe it just has to do with the fact that they're a young team. They haven't been here before. The Niners have been here every year, practically, since like 2019, except for 2020. The Niners are a more experienced team than the Lions. But man, are the Lions hungrier? Is that a fair question to ask? Like, maybe they're hungry, whereas maybe the 49ers are just, it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds ridiculous, what I'm saying, who's hungrier. This is professional sports. Of course, they're all hungry. But I don't know. I just get that vibe from the Lions. They're just, I don't know. They've played this way all season long, where they're just super hungry. And I want to backpedal. I'm picking the 49ers. I know Mike's supposed to give his pick first. I'm picking the 49ers to win this game. But I would be lying if I didn't say there is something about this Lions team where I could see them pulling off an upset. I know the Niners are 7-point favorites, but man, I just want to give huge respect. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a terrific weapon. He's a terrific wide receiver. Sam Laporta, terrific tight end. In his first year, Jahmyr Gibbs, wow, what an electric player. One of the most electric players in the entire NFL. David Montgomery can wear down a defense. David Montgomery, oh man, the 49ers better not hope that they're playing from behind, because I know the Lions will run it right up the middle with David Montgomery to wear down the defense, and the drives will get long. Jared Goff has been playing great. He comes from Marin. And 49er fans, if you're still watching this, and didn't tune this out because this seems like I'm just like absolutely giving nothing but compliments to the Lions, please hear me out. I'll get to where I think the 49ers are going to win. The Lions defense has been playing very well too. You know what I mean? They are an all-around very good football team. And they should be absolutely proud of where they've gone. The 49ers, I think, man, this is tough because I feel less confident about the Niners this week because of the way the Packer game played out. But as long as it doesn't rain, I think the Niners will play better. I don't know if they could have played worse against the Packers. I mean, they could have lost. But really, like, everything did not go their way until like the final drive. Or, mostly most of the game didn't go their way until the final drive, and they were still able to pull it out. Whereas the Packers were playing well, it seemed like all game, and just couldn't seal the deal. And they were a hot football team who most recently beat the Packers. I'm going to look up a stat real quick because I feel like this is a big factor that has to do with the fact that the Lions played very well, at home, and they're not going to be playing in a dome in this game. I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place in this little section of the video. So I'm just, it's really tough for me. It's really tough for me right now. Mike, can you take over while I gather my thoughts? Because I don't do this very, very often where I feel like I'm just so flustered by the game. Like, it's going to be a good ass game. I don't think it's going to be one-sided.
I texted you maybe the day before the Packers game or the day of, and I just asked you, nervous, ? And then your response was something along the lines of no, period, ready. Right? And I mean, I was asking that nervous question because I felt like the Packers could do it, and they almost did. So now I must ask you, are you nervous?
Yes, I'm very nervous as a 49er fan, and maybe I shouldn't be. And I'll probably get a lot of comments, on like our video throughout the week about, why the 49ers are going to win. But man, this Lions team is just like, they're a gritty football team. They are beatable though.
They're absolutely beatable. I mean, the Packers handled them on Thanksgiving in a game that the Lions needed to stay in the 1 seed race. If my team were facing the Lions, well, really, if I'm being honest, being that if anybody watching this video is looking at my hat, they know who my team is. The thought of my team just being in the AFC Championship makes my pants get bigger, whether it's because I shit myself or for another reason. And I would be very nervous. Okay? Sorry for the foul jokes there, but the Lions. Oh. The Titans. Sorry, this is breaking news, so I'll just drop it. The Titans are working to finalize a deal to hire Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan as their next head coach. So, anyways, with the Lions, I got to start with this. Obviously, the face of the franchise, if it isn't a player, it would probably be, or if it is a player, it'd probably be Jared Goff right now. But we all know it's Dan Campbell, right? And I think almost all the credit in the world does need to go to him. But I think the guy that's getting forgotten with this Lions team is their general manager, Brad Holmes, who has absolutely done a masterclass in roster building, dating back to even before they traded for Jared Goff in the Matt Stafford trade. We're going to talk about the Raiders later and Antonio Pierce and everything, and I think the key difference between where the Raiders are at now and where the Lions were when they had Brad Holmes making that trade with Stafford, getting Goff, is the Raiders don't have a player that they can trade to get 2 first-round picks and a player worth starting in return for. That was a great deal for the Lions. And then you tack onto that the fact that the Lions have drafted pretty damn well in that time frame from then till now, right? I mean, guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, Laporta this season. Oh, and Brian Branch, hell of a pick. The fact that he was even at the spot that they got him, I'm just like, he might be the steal of the draft. Brad Holmes has done a great job at GM for this team. And then you, of course, as we mentioned, you have Dan Campbell, who's, setting the tone, building the culture, getting the players to buy in. You have an offensive coordinator in Ben Johnson, who is just in his absolute bag. They were just demolishing the Buccaneers in the second half of that game. He was in his bag. Just when Ben Johnson's hot, dude, look out. Okay? For me, it's the Lions defense that scares me in this one. And the reason I say scares me is because, as I mentioned, if you look at my hat, you know what team I'm a fan of. But from a distance, as a guy who realized my team probably wasn't going to make the playoffs pretty early on this season, and a guy, myself, who really loves to root for the underdog, knowing that the Lions hadn't won a playoff game in 32 years, I can't help but root for that, right? And they got it done. They've now won 2 playoff games, right? And that's good for them. But I there's something about Dan Campbell. There's something about them, being the lone 0-16 team in NFL history. There's something about really everything about this team that really makes me root for them, to the point where I've paid attention to them for the past several years since that trade involving Jared Goff. And again, just rooting for them, watching them grow from being like 3-13 to last season, and then now getting 12 wins, winning the division. All these things that they hadn't done in so long that I can relate to as a Raider fan, right? I haven't seen my team win the division. I haven't seen my team win a playoff game in my life. It sucks. So yeah, I'm going to root for those fans to win those games because they deserve it, right? They've stuck around all this time. You see the video when they win the playoff game against the Rams of fans crying, and then they had that one guy, apparently he's a season ticket holder. He's been the season ticket holder for like 60 years. Dude with white hair, old gentleman. Just like, yeah, like finally. I'm just like, dude, this guy has waited 32 years. Let's say he's 60. He's waited half his life to see this shit happen again. That sucks. And it also sucks for Niner fans to go to 4 of the last 5 or whatever NFC championships and lose like 3 of them or whatever the numbers are, and then go to the Super Bowls and lose those 2. It's like, yeah, that sucks. But like, this team was hot garbage, dumpster fire. What do you call it? Bottom of the barrel, right? What's the term? Poverty franchise, right? That's what the Lions have always been as long as I've known football. And here they are. I have not rooted for a team harder besides my own team, to go all the way and win it. I have not ever rooted for a team harder. Well, that's not true. Actually, I was rooting really hard for the Ravens the year that they beat you guys. And that's not because they were facing you guys. And I'm not rooting for the Lions this week because they're facing you guys. It's because of who they are, what they represent, what they've been through, right? The Ravens back in 2012 or whatever year that was, it's because Ray Lewis was retiring. And they had those YouTube highlight videos of him where it would just be the Dark Knight Rises soundtrack and just him like, fight, 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 and then like him hitting somebody super hard. I'm just like, I would get goosebumps watching that. I could watch it daily and I would get goosebumps. I've never. Those are the two teams I can think of that are not the Raiders that I've rooted for immensely hard. Yeah. That being said, the Raiders or the Lions are playing the Niners outdoors in Santa Clara, not at their own house. The weather's supposed to be good, but there's this tendency for Jared Goff to not play well when he's outdoors or away. Okay, right? Like, we'll see. He's also from California, as you mentioned, from pretty close by. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Jared Goff is from Marin, which is over in the Sausalito area. He actually played for Marin Catholic High School, and that's where my dad went to high school. It's where a lot of my uncles and aunts went to school. My aunt is actually in the Marin Catholic Hall of Fame for playing softball. So that's a little fun fact. And my uncle Steve used to play quarterback for that school, so I'm sure that he kind of lives a little vicariously through Jared Goff a little bit, maybe little Uncle Rico vibes, like, yeah, if they would have put me in. No, I think he was the starting quarterback, but if I would have kept playing, we would have won state. I'm just joking. I would love to see the film of my uncle playing at Marin Catholic High School. But going back to Jared Goff, he's a local guy. And I mentioned that the Lions maybe don't play as good on the road. They've only lost 3 games on the road this year out of the 5 games that they've lost. So I want to kind of walk back my comment, because if you lose 3 games on the road, that's fine. You won a majority of your road games. You deserve credit for that. I want to say the Niners probably lost. I mean, what? The games that the 49ers lost were in Cleveland. It was
Minnesota.
In Minnesota, and then at home,
and then Baltimore. There was a 3-game streak. Oh, the Bengals, and then the Ravens later. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Rams. Technically was their other loss. Yeah. So that was also at home. So honestly, really close. The Niners have lost 3 at home. You take the Rams one with a grain of salt. The Lions have lost 3 on the road. It's a very, these teams, it's a great matchup. How last year we were thinking, man, the NFC Championship game is going to be a great game between the Eagles and the 49ers. And I think it was going to be. And then Brock Purdy got hurt.
Yeah.
I really feel like this game is going to be exciting. I guess when I look for reasons why I'm picking the 49ers, I don't know if it's my gut, but the 49ers are called faithful, and I picked the 49ers all year, and I'm going to remain faithful to the 49ers and pick them again this weekend. And I'm going to provide a little keys to the game on how they can beat the Detroit Lions. So, the Niners in most of the games do not start off with the football. They like to defer when they win the toss, or other teams like to get the ball first. However it happens on the coin toss, the 49ers typically want to get the ball at halftime. They have to contain Jared Goff and get pressure on him. They cannot let him feel comfortable, because the Lions are going to be able to run the football. The 49ers do not have as strong of a run defense as maybe they've had in the past. Jahmyr Gibbs is a great athlete. He, whether it's him, taking the ball out of the backfield and going, rushing straight at a defense. I feel like David Montgomery is a little bit better up the middle than Jahmyr Gibbs is, but Gibbs is the more explosive player. Gibbs can, on a passing play, roll out to the left and, get the ball, and he's just so explosive. He's very fast. The 49ers need to make sure that they are tackling much better than they were last week against the Packers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, and there's one other receiver I think on the Lions that I'm forgetting. You need to make sure that they don't beat you over the top, which the 49ers don't. But that pass rush, Nick Bosa and Chase Young need to be better this week than they were last week. And I think maybe the rain might have also had an impact on them being able to rush the passer. Man, get to Jared Goff, throw him off his game. That's where I would start. Big thing that I would do to beat the Lions is on your first possession, take advantage of it. God forbid that you're down 7-0 to start the game. If you're able to hold them to 3-0 or 0-0, you get the ball, you drive down the field, and now you put the pressure on the Lions. The Lions are a young team. Like I said, they're not as experienced as the 49ers in the playoffs. You get them down 7-0. Maybe they play a little bit more desperately on offense, or maybe it's early in the game. They just kind of want to take it to you and rush, right? If you are able to stop them again, just keep applying pressure is all I'll say. You put pressure on the other team, they will start to get desperate. Let's see. Just keep playing from ahead. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. The Niners they need to do what's gotten them, here all year, and they need to feed Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I hope Debo is able to play. The matchup between him and CJ Gardner-Johnson would be, a very interesting matchup because of the trash talk that's kind of gone on between the two. But Debo luckily doesn't have a fracture on his shoulder, but he is still questionable to play. And there will be more, I guess, insight on whether or not he'll be able to play on Wednesday. My next key of the game, Brock Purdy, do not turn the ball over. If you turn the ball over, it's going to be very difficult for this team to win. And then also too, this will be my last point. I'm not going to give any more keys to the game because really I'm very interested to see the way that this one plays out. I'm not as confident in the way that this game will play out versus other 49er games. So I'm really sorry if I just completely botched this whole segment, right? I've been listening to 49er people, 49er content creators stream, and overall the vibes are super low with the 49ers. And I feel like where Shanahan operates in his best is when people have low expectations and don't expect the 49ers to just win a very important game. And he goes out and I think has a good game plan and surprises everybody. So this game is probably going to be harder than the Packers game. And right now, everybody's expectations got a little bit tempered from last week and the vibes are low. I'm saying forget that. Shanahan, I know you're going to surprise us in some way. And if it's another meltdown, my God, I'm going to throw my hat on the floor and stomp on it. Mike, you have the floor.
All right. I'll try to make this quick. Mina Kimes tweeted during the Lions and Buccaneers game, Jared Goff ranked first in QBR when kept clean this year. I'm assuming she's saying when his pocket is kept clean, when the pocket is kept clean, right? AKA when he's not pressured. first in QBR. Okay. I know maybe this is more of a fantasy football thing, but I know that when he goes and plays away and especially outdoors, he's not quite as statistically amazing. So that can be an aspect where maybe their pass game is not quite so not polarizing, but good
Potent.
against against the Niners. Granted, I still think minus Charvarius Ward, I think, and I guess Fred Warner, the Niners pass defense is a little weaker than the run defense, right? And I would say at the same time, the Lions rushing offense is stronger than their passing offense. But I would say both are pretty good. I think if this game is a good weather game, nice, beautiful Santa Clara day in January, I don't know, let's say 65 degrees and sunny or maybe a little overcast, it's fair game. I think Brock Purdy will have a good game, but I think just as well likely is Jared Goff having a good game. I don't see why him being outdoors is going to kill him in this game. I could see it in like Chicago or Green Bay where it's 20
Conditions
degrees.
are bad, yeah.
Right. Unless it's raining, I think the passing games are going to be fine. So back to that Mina Kimes tweet. He's number one in QBR when the pocket is kept clean. So I just went to profootballreference.com. Look up Niners defense. On team advanced defense, their pressure percentage is 17th in the league, the Niners, with 20.9% pressure percentage. Total pressures, I'm assuming on the season. I don't know what number, but they have a total of 147. Do you want to know who's first in both of those categories? The Detroit Lions. The Lions have 187 pressures. Their pressure percentage is 28.2%. I don't know what Brock Purdy's stats are as far as when his pocket is kept clean and when he's getting pressured, but I'm curious. And then the other stat that I wanted to bring up, just for the sake of applying pressure and maybe adding pressure, right, is blitz percentage. The team that blitzed the most is the Minnesota Vikings. That's a pretty well-known thing with their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. Lions are maybe top 10, it looks like, 28.7%. The Niners are the third least when it comes to blitzing the quarterback. And that could be a positive or a negative. That could be a testament to how strong their defensive line is. And keeping help on the backside of the defense, right? But I think when you're facing the quarterback that has the number one QBR in the season, when his pocket is kept clean, you're going to need Nick Bosa to step up. You're going to need to apply pressure, right? I don't know if I heard Chase Young's name last weekend. I really don't know if I heard his name. I hardly heard Bosa's name. I noticed Bosa on the final play applying the pressure that forced Jordan Love to throw the errant throw. But other than that, I don't really remember him against the Packers. Your D-line needs to step up.
He had a solid play where, he got a tackle for loss on Aaron Jones. But, like you said, when it comes to pressuring the quarterback, he hasn't had as great a season as he did last year. Last year, he was hitting a home run every play. Or not every play, but every game. Not literally, but he was getting a sack every game.
So I think to finalize my thoughts in this game, I think it's going to go one or two ways. Like you said, Shanahan could shock us one or two ways. Either the Niners just blow out the Lions, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think that's very possible. I saw a few times this season where the Lions, it just seemed like they shot the bed. They were this hot team against the Ravens and that Packers Thanksgiving game. It just felt like, man, and there was a Bears game where they had to come back at the last second and score like 2 touchdowns. And I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did. But otherwise, it was like, dude, the Lions are going to lose to the Bears. divisional game, but still, right?
They did lose to the Bears.
Maybe they did eventually, but I remember there was one week where they were down like 2 possessions with like 5 minutes left, and it was like, oh my God, they're going to lose. And somehow at the last minute, they pulled off the win.
Mhm.
But maybe the second time they faced them, they lost. Point being,
so they pulled off the win at home, but they lost to the Bears on the road in December.
Right. So point being, I think anything can happen here. I can totally see it where I think the Niners are still the best team, at least on paper, that are left. I still think so. I think right now the best team as far as how they look and how they've been playing is the Ravens. The most experienced team is the Chiefs, and the team with the most fire and the most up and coming, they're the story right now. That's the Lions, right? They're the young team that's, oh man, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think it can be that shocking ending where something happens, or the Lions could receive the ball to start the game. They score a touchdown and they keep the lead the rest of the way. I could see it happening. They can own the type of possession. They could just run. Occasional pass from Jared Goff, and just do it. Obviously, I don't know how it's going to go. Like I said, I can easily see the Niners winning this game, and I think my gut tells me that's what I should pick, but I'm going to pick the Lions. I think I can see the Lions going out there. Like I said, they go out there, they score first, they get the momentum, and they keep it. Ben Johnson calls a great game. And that was the thing. That was the other thing I wanted to say. You mentioned earlier tonight, the Niners being a top-end rush defense, and you said that was likely in part. I'm not saying this word for word, but you said something along the lines of that was likely in part because of the game script. The Niners' potent offense just goes crazy on these teams to the point where that offense, the opposing offense, can't run the ball. They have to pass. The Lions, if they get off to an early lead in this game, they're going to run. And then it's going to be like, wait, are the Niners not that good against the run, actually? We'll see. I think it's going to come down to Ben Johnson versus Kyle Shanahan. And I said it earlier, and I don't think I got to finish my point, but the one thing that scares me as the guy, I'm sorry, but rooting for the Lions here, the one thing that scares me about the Lions is their pass defense. I can see Purdy having that game where it shuts all the critics up, and Brandon Ayuk goes off because the Lions' corners are not that good. But maybe they lock in, and maybe they get it done. But we'll see. And then there's also George Kittle, who now it seems like every week he has a 40-plus yard catch. It's like, what the hell? But you also have the offensive weapons on the Lions. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm picking the Lions. Although like I said, I very well probably should pick the Niners, but I can see it. I can see it for the Lions, and I'm going to pick them.
Yeah, I mean, I respect the decision, for you to pick the Lions. One thing I do want to add too is I don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to play in this game. I mentioned that, and that is a big thing. That changes everything that the 49ers do on offense because I mean Deebo Samuel takes a lot of attention away from Ayuk and takes a lot of attention away from McCaffrey and Kittle.
Yeah.
I also want to mention the center for the Lions, Frank Ragnow, is banged up. He sprained his knee and his ankle against the Buccaneers, but is still expected to play per Schefter.
Yeah, and that actually you knocked off 2 other things that I meant to talk about in this game. Earlier we were talking about the Lions and like their culture and stuff. It's like players like Frank Ragnow playing through these injuries. That's a Dan Campbell thing, and that's them being bought into like we have to win, we can win. I'm going to make sure that we do win. Frank Ragnow is a fucking beast for doing what he did, and I fully expect him to play too. And then as far as the Niners without potentially Deebo, whether or not they have Deebo, what the Niners could do to win this game, other than getting off to an early lead and keeping that pace going, run the ball with McCaffrey. You're finally in the championship game. This is the game we've been waiting for, other than the Super Bowl, for this team. It's like it feels like ever since like maybe the second half of the season, Shanahan has just like dialed down the touches for McCaffrey. Am I wrong? It feels
Dude,
like this is the time to utilize the fuck out of him. If they do, Niners will win.
In September, you couldn't get the ball out of McCaffrey's hands. You couldn't get him off the field.
Right.
Like, nobody else could get the ball. And now when the season's on the line, you want to put it like in Purdy's hands. No! McCaffrey's right there. He's right there. So, yeah. No.
This is the time to utilize him as much as possible. Like, it shouldn't be the Carolina Panthers West. It shouldn't be just McCaffrey, but it should be a lot of them. It should be a lot of them.
You know what unit is going to make or break this game?
Probably, I'm assuming you're going to say special teams.
No. But that's a good guess. I feel like the defensive line for the 49ers has a big impact on this game. Like you mentioned about the stat, against Jared Goff, when he's pressured and when he's not pressured, if they can get pressure on, Jared Goff, that's huge, but also they need to play better in order to stop the run, right? David Montgomery is the type of back to wear down the defense. Gibbs, if he's able to make it through, is very explosive. But I saw when the Lions played against the Cowboys, they didn't let Jahmyr Gibbs get going. That is a blueprint that the 49ers need to implement. Don't let Jahmyr Gibbs get going, because there was a lot of plays where it looked like guys on the Cowboys were just going untouched in, hitting Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. If you don't let him get going, I feel like Detroit is going to have to find other avenues, and getting pressure on Goff eliminates that threat, or not eliminates, but it silences that threat. I don't even know if silences is the right word to but it mitigates that threat. There we go. But yeah, so I've got Niners, you've got Lions, and yeah, I'm going based off of faith that the 49ers are going to win this game. And if I'm wrong, it'll just be another season where we just don't win it.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. You've said if the Lions are no longer in it, you're going to root for the 49ers. Does this mean that if the 49ers advance, you will root for them in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I promise.
Yeah? You're not just gonna you're not gonna like
switch up.
You're not going to switch up and be like, yeah, you see this red and yellow? I'm wearing it because the Chiefs.
Oh, well, okay. I mean,
I'm just
that's the
kidding.
thing. If the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, it could be the Lions,
bets
it
are
could be
off.
the Niners, it could be Afghanistan. I'm not rooting for the Chiefs. If the Ravens are in the Super Bowl and it's versus the Niners, I'll have a hard time, admittedly, but I plan on spending time with family who are Niner fans, and I'll take the high road and root for the Niners. And this podcast honestly makes it easy for me to root for the Niners,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, and if anybody doesn't know this, that's watching this, like my feeling is, again, I root for the underdog, and legacies have a large effect on my decisions. So the legacy of the Niners already having 6 or 5 Super Bowl rings.
They have 5.
5? Okay.
They've been on a never-ending quest for 6. Make it stop. Just do it now. Just please do it now. Right now. Get it out of the way.
I want to say the Chiefs have 2 Super Bowl rings. I could be wrong. It might be 3. And the Ravens, I want to say, have 2. But regardless, whether the Chiefs have 3 or 2, you add up both of them, at the most, you get the same amount as the Niners. So, like, for me, as a Raider fan who my team has 3 Super Bowl rings, and I want my team in my lifetime to eventually have the most. Rooting for the Niners is hard, right? But you have the Patriots ahead of the Niners, so I'm willing to give you guys 1 Super Bowl. You win it, and never do it again in my life.
Hey, we had a deal, remember?
Yeah.
We had a deal.
Oh, yeah.
We had a deal. The Niners, our deal was you were going to let the Niners win the Super Bowl in Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas,
in the Raiders' house. And in a couple years, the Super Bowl is going to be at Levi's. And then it's the Raiders' time. And if the Raiders get all the way and the Niners are not in it, Mike, you bet your sweet ass, I'll be like, you know what? Let the Raiders have one. I made a deal with Mike. If you hold up your end, I'll hold up mine.
And again, this is very much a Lions thing right now. If you guys are facing the Buccaneers this week, I'd be rooting for the Niners. The Buccaneers won it like 2 years ago or whatever. Like, I'm tired of them. Get away, And the Niners, again, that's been my thing this season is like, this Niners team is built up so well. They absolutely deserve to win. Their fans do deserve to win, especially the young fans like you who haven't seen it, right? So, yeah, I have no problem rooting for you guys, but it's just this week, I like the Lions. I'm here for the Lions. But if you guys beat them fair and square, cool. All right, go Niners.
Hey, even if it's not fair and square, just let it, I don't even care. If it's off of a stupid penalty and we win, weep. No, I'm kidding. I want it fair and square. That's how, I don't want there to be some sort of asterisk. Like, maybe that trophy in the back might have. Where is it? Where's the trophy?
Wait, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no trophy back there.
Did you take it in?
No. I threw it away. We don't need it anymore. No, it's actually it's on the ground right here. I put my Nintendo Switch up, so I don't have space for it anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody in the chat just know Rob Michael's house.
Yeah.
No, I'm fucking with you. All right. Speaking of the people in the chat, I've been heavily procrastinating on the comments. Anthony, tuning back in as always. We always appreciate it. Anthony says the Ravens he needs the Ravens to win. Yeah, I would imagine as a Raider fan that you are not ever going to root for the Chiefs, even if your child's life depended on it. Huh, Mike? You wouldn't do it.
Well, no. But if you give me like I said, if it's the Chiefs versus Afghanistan, give me Afghanistan. Like, hey, cool for them. They've never played in the NFL. Wow, what a weird story. Stupid.
Yeah. Anthony also says MCDC, talking about Dan Campbell, gonna suit up and play this week, and he's gonna have 10 snaps at linebacker/DN. Hey man, I would take his old ass on the field over his players who are playing very well. But you know what? Knowing him, how much coffee does he drink in the morning? You know what? Get his ass off the field too. I don't want to risk it. He's got that old man strength. Grown man strength is, it's a real thing, dude. Also, we've got a comment from a new viewer. Thrash says, "What's up, guys? Just found you the other day." Thrash, welcome.
Welcome.
Please comment below which NFL team that you are a fan of. We've gotten comments from, fans of all kinds of teams. So, I'm assuming that you're either a Niner or a Raider fan, and we appreciate you catching it live. So, I'll put up the comment on the screen if you're able to follow up. If not, just welcome to the show. Hope you enjoy. All right. Let's get into the Raiders side of things, Mike. The Raiders have hired Antonio Pierce as their head coach. How are you feeling?
I feel great. Feel excited. Feel a little mixed in a certain aspect. not because of him, but because of the process in which that they hired him, the Raiders.
And that's all the time we have today. I'm just playing. No, sorry, Mike. We have been talking about this for several weeks. You know, we've given everything that we have in terms of why they should hire Antonio Pierce or not hire Antonio Pierce. Go on. I'm so sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're good. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have notes, so I'll just go through the notes. As I mentioned, I have mixed feelings about the process in which the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce. Raiders interviewed 2 other candidates this past Tuesday. Raiders ended up hiring Antonio Pierce on Friday. Raiders interviewed Leslie Frazier, former, I want to say, I get it mixed up. I want to say Vikings head coach, former Bills defensive coordinator, out of the league last year. I think he was the Bills defensive coordinator, obviously not this season, but maybe a season ago, and he stepped away. And then the day after we had our last podcast, last Monday, the next day, Tuesday, Chris Richard was interviewed for the head coaching vacancy. Okay. Chris Richard, former defensive coordinator, I want to say for the Seahawks or the Saints. I might be getting that mixed up. I know he was on the coaching staff for both teams. But by no means is he a real candidate to be a head coach in today's NFL. In fact, I guarantee you no other team has interviewed him for their head coaching vacancies, right? So what did the Raiders do? Antonio Pierce had interviewed with the Raiders the day prior to these 2 interviews. What did the Raiders do here? Okay. They satisfied 2 things that they needed to satisfy. The 2 things that they needed to. 1, let's be honest here, the Rooney Rule. They interviewed 2 candidates of color. And then the other aspect is these 2 candidates, not through the Rooney Rule, but just in general, they have to interview 2 candidates from outside of the building for the vacant head coach position. In 2 interviews, they knocked out both, things that they needed to do. So, my opinion, once they came out and announced the Raiders interviewed Chris Richard, I'm just going to be honest. Once I saw a picture of him and I had never even heard of his name, I said, well, they're hiring Pierce. It's a matter of not if, it's when. And when came on Friday. They didn't interview anybody else. No decision yet at GM. I was told by the media that Mark Davis was going to hire a GM first. And here we are. It's Monday, the 22nd, and we still don't have a GM hired. And there were reports, and I think they're true, that Champ Kelly was sitting in on these head coach interviews. So why isn't he the GM? If he's helping in the process of hiring eventually Antonio Pierce, but also talking to Leslie Frazier and Chris Richard, it's like, why isn't he the GM? What is the holdup there? We'll get to that later. Here's the big one that I'm sure, Josh, you're biting your lip on. According to Vic Tafur from The Athletic, the Raiders reached out to Jim Harbaugh's agent.
Whoa!
At some point during the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't give any context. In fact, I think I might have sent it to you if you want to look at the tweets that I sent you.
I'll pull it up.
Because I know there are going to be tweets that I want you to pull up here and there. He didn't give any context as to whether the Raiders decided not to bring him in for an interview based on reaching out to his agent, or if Harbaugh just relayed to the Raiders, not interested. No idea. There is not a single crumb of whether he was uninterested or if the Raiders were uninterested. I mean, clearly reaching out means that they were interested, but maybe there were some words exchanged that told one of the 2 sides, I don't want to do it. So that's all Vic Tafur gave, was they talked to his agent. Okay. I can have a little bit of I can feel a little better about this process, knowing that they at least reached out to the one guy that we would argue was the better candidate than Antonio Pierce. For me, that's very arguable. For you, definitive, right? So yeah, that's really that as far as Antonio Pierce getting hired. I know I don't sound that excited. It's been days. I've gotten to kind of soak it in and feel good about it. And I'll get into the positives. I'll also get into the negatives. But I am excited. I'm very happy over the fact that this Raiders team, the locker room, and its fans have the coach that they wanted. And I really want to believe that Mark Davis was all in from the jump on Antonio Pierce. Reaching out to Harbaugh kind of takes away from that. And then you also have this aspect of Max Crosby going out to the media and saying, hey, all things are on the table if they don't keep Pierce. Vic Tafur, I don't know if I sent it to you, but Vic Tafur has tweeted since that apparently Max Crosby knew all along that it was going to be Antonio Pierce. Maybe it was a very in-house thing that, yeah, it's going to be Pierce. Don't worry about it, guys. But if that's the case, why would you allow Max Crosby to put out a bad PR spin on the hiring process? Because what it makes it look like to every other fan and media person in the league is that Max Crosby affected the decision to hire Antonio Pierce and not, hire somebody else, right? Oh, the Raiders got scared off. They let their players take over. That's not what happened, but that's what it looks like through Max Crosby kind of toying with it, and letting it get public. It's like, keep that shit in house. Even if it was a joke. I don't know what it was, but don't mess with PR. That's just a stupid look. It really makes the Raiders look stupid. As you see on the screen, Antonio Pierce's candidacy, he was very clear that he knows what he doesn't know and plans to bring in top people to cover his blind spots. Names like Marvin Lewis and Tom Coughlin were raised to cover the experience gap. Here's an interesting thing. During the bye week, I never mentioned this on the podcast. During the bye week for the Raiders before the Vikings game, Antonio Pierce brought in 3 guys, former head coaches in the league, to help kind of give him some pointers on how to finish out the season, right? He brought in Marvin Lewis, Tom Coughlin, and Adam Gase. Okay. Those first 2 names, sweet. Adam Gase, let's keep him away from here, please. But okay, I'll give him credit for, bringing in multiple people and like, hey, from your experience, blah, 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 right? Cool. Let's get into the positives and negatives of hiring Antonio Pierce early. In my opinion, you had Gerard Mayo from the Patriots. That was an in-house, already built into his contract. He's going to, supplant Belichick whenever that comes. Boom. They had it set in stone, ready to go. Got it done. They didn't even need to interview anybody else. The Raiders, they kind of make a mockery of the Rooney Rule. They get Pierce, right? Let's go through the negatives. The Raiders didn't seem to do their due diligence that Mark Davis promised in the head coaching, hiring process. They didn't have any interviews with coaches like Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, Bucks offensive coordinator Dave Canales, Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, Bengals offensive coordinator who was just hired by the Tennessee Titans, Brian Callahan, or Dolphins offensive coordinator Frank Smith. Why is that a negative? Because the Raiders could have got them in the building and at the very least asked them, what would you do to turn this team around? What would you do to turn this offense around? You had Champ Kelly in the room, apparently. What if it's an inside knowledge that Antonio Pierce is getting the job, who cares? Why not ask them these questions, take notes, hire Antonio Pierce, and then go, all right, well, now we have some ideas of what we could do, what sort of systems we could run.
I'll tell you why that's irrelevant, Mike. I don't think that's relevant. If you're going to bring them in and ask them what their plan is to turn around this team, and you like their plan more than Antonio Pierce's plan, then maybe you shouldn't hire Antonio Pierce.
But
That's
not if they
assuming that
already...
Antonio Pierce doesn't have a plan.
Right. I think this is my gut speaking here. I don't think the Raiders were hiring Pierce based off of his plan. I think they were hiring Pierce based off of what he said in his final press conference at the end of the season after the Broncos game. It was called the Donkeys. A reporter asked him, "Do you think that you deserve the head coaching job moving forward?" And his answer was, I wouldn't say deserve. I hope that I've earned it. And I think he earned it. I think that what he did in turning around the culture and getting all the players to buy in for the first time in fuck knows how long, yeah, he deserves it. He deserves his shot. You can bring in an offensive coordinator to implement an offense because that's what held us back. I think, okay, can you actually put up the top tweet that I sent you? Most recent top tweet, like at the top. It's going to be a picture. There it is. Since Antonio Pierce took over as the interim GM, or interim head coach for the Raiders, it's from PFF. On defense, 16.0 points per game allowed, first in the league. 30 sacks over however many weeks from midseason, third. 4 defensive touchdowns. That's kind of a gimme. You know, that's not sustainable, but still first in the league with 4 touchdowns. 31 penalties, fewest in the league. Plus 62-point differential, 4th in the league. That's with a shitty offense. I mean, the 62 or 63-point game against the Chargers, that helps, but the Chargers also put 21 points up in that game, which is more than our points per game average given up by the defense. The team was killing it with Pierce. It's not a question. The offense just held it back. You give them a full season with that right there, with that tweet right there, 16.0 points per game allowed. All I'm used to as a Raider fan is 30 points per game allowed. And our offense scoring 28 points per game and just barely losing 7-9. The cycle continues. We've talked about it multiple times. They never get that top pick because they're just good enough to win those games that they should, lose the games that they should. They never get it. It's just, it feels like with Antonio Pierce, it's a little different. So my point here is just, you know, you said if one of these offensive coordinators comes in and has a better plan, it's like, to me, it wasn't about the plan. It's about Antonio Pierce being, he earned it. Point blank, period. The way that the team performed under him is undeniable. And it's not guaranteed that any of these offensive coordinators can come in and have the buy-in that Antonio Pierce did immediately. Not guaranteed. And it's also very likely that your defensive staff is lost, and then your defense doesn't do what is on the screen right now with one of these offensive coordinators, right? And again, that was my point with Harbaugh, is like, that's the risk. That's what I don't like. We want continuity here. Continuity. We want continuity here. And hopefully they're getting that. It's just a matter of who the hell is going to be their offensive coordinator. So, just to continue. As far as those offensive coordinators go, the Raiders couldn't interview those coaches in person until today, right? Until after the divisional round of the playoffs. For any coach that is still in, you know, on a roster, on a team, whatever you want to call it. But they
like
could have
in a team
interviewed.
That's not eliminated.
Correct. Well, I think if they were currently or at the end of the season on an NFL team, they could not be interviewed in person. I don't know. It might be that they have to be, if they're in the playoffs, it can't be until. But okay, what makes sense to me? Let's just for a second to take off the Raiders. What is more fair? I don't fucking know the actual rule of this, but you have Dave Canales on the Buccaneers, right? To the Buccaneers, it's not fair if he goes and does an in-person interview with the Panthers, right? When he's on game week, right? It's like, we got to focus on the game, dude. Doing a little 30-minute to 1 hour, interview like this on Zoom, not the worst thing in the world. He's already done his executing for the day, at practice and all that. But if a team like the Panthers could go and interview the coach from the Jaguars, who were eliminated from the playoffs, they could get him in the building in person. Boom, within 2 days, they interview 2 other guys, they hire him, right? Is that fair to a team like, let's say the Raiders, let's just say for reference, or the Titans? They want to interview Ben Johnson, but they can't yet because he's in the playoffs. But they really like that guy from the Jaguars. Well, the Panthers just up and hired him, while the Titans were 2 steps behind the Panthers because they were waiting for Ben Johnson to exit the playoffs. The rule should be, if you are currently on a team, you cannot have an in-person interview with another team until after the divisional round, just like the playoff teams, non-playoff. That should be fair, because these teams that are looking for a new coach, they should be in the same line. They should be in the same process, like as far as timing goes, they should be in the same stages as each other. That's where hiring Pierce early could potentially give the Raiders an advantage, because it's like, hey, we can go get our offensive coordinator now, whereas the Chargers just now, the Titans, but all these teams that don't have a head coach yet, they can't get their offensive coordinator until they get their coach, right? So in theory, the Raiders, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is a positive for the Raiders. Getting Pierce early, you can get your offensive coordinator before these other teams start looking. But is that fair? I guess it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I guess I'll get into my positives. I do think the Raiders made the right decision. They don't waste any time doing so. And they also don't allow Pierce the opportunity to leave and go to the Titans or go to the Falcons, who he had interviews with. And again, now that they have their head coach, they can now look for an offensive coordinator. So before we move on to coaching staff updates, do you have any lasting thoughts on Antonio Pierce being hired?
Well, all right. I want to say this. I think it was a good hire. I know that I have been of the opinion that I think Jim Harbaugh was the best candidate available, but it's not even a guarantee that Harbaugh will come out of, coaching college football in order to become an NFL head coach. Clearly, it would appear as though Jim Harbaugh was not interested in coming to the Raiders. So if Harbaugh isn't going to come to the Raiders, then I don't see why you don't hire Antonio Pierce. That was my feeling. Yeah. This brings me to my next question, or I guess my first question. How long is the contract for Antonio Pierce? Did they say how long it is?
They haven't said how long. You also have to bear in mind they haven't had an introductory press conference. And that's why, again, the whole they're going to hire the GM first thing is throwing me off, because it's like when they hired McDaniels, they hired Ziegler with him, and they had a press conference with both of them at the podium. I think that's what they want to do. And also, as far as, Antonio Pierce being hired, the Raiders did announce it, and they put out a statement, but when it was announced, like, oh, Antonio Pierce is being hired, it was like, it wasn't he is hired. It's the Raiders are finalizing a deal with Antonio Pierce. So I wonder if it's not pen to paper yet until the GM also puts pen to paper. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I too am curious how long the deal will be.
So my question for you, Mike, is, all right, however many years that this deal is, the Raiders players vouch for Antonio Pierce harder than I think I remember any NFL team vouching for a coach that they wanted to retain. I know the Panthers, they vouched for Steve Wilkes and wanted to retain him as coach, but not to this degree. If the Raiders do not improve and make the playoffs this year, what do you do with Antonio Pierce going forward? And again, to all the Raider fans watching at home, I know this is way too early to even discuss, but I'm just thinking big picture. Like, you kind of have to think about this if you're Mark Davis, like as an owner, right? Like, you're honoring what your players wanted. But if that doesn't work out, like, your players wanted this and asked for this. You essentially, in my opinion, is it a wasted season if they don't make the playoffs? What do you do? What do you do from there?
Yeah, I think the way that I felt about Pierce is, and I think we've said this before, is like give him 2 years. And that's not me saying next year is okay if they don't make the playoffs. Like with how close they got after a 3-5 start under McDaniels and having to completely switch up the offense and blah, 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 blah. I'm expecting the playoffs next year. I am. And if we don't make it, yeah, I'll be let down. I think I will have to judge the season accordingly. It's too early to tell, like you mentioned, because I do expect a lot of turnover on offense. And that might take a year to properly implement, for all we know. Maybe we get a rookie quarterback. Maybe we get Justin Fields. Maybe it's not, all, sunshine and rainbows day one with the offense. It might take a while. It's not like our defense is going to score 4 defensive touchdowns in a 9-week span every year.
Yeah, normally turnovers on offense definitely is not sunshine and rainbows, Mike. I'm just messing with your
words. Did I say offense?
Yeah, well, you said there's going to be turnover on offense, but you were talking about personnel, turnover.
Yeah, personnel. Yeah.
I
and coaching. But here's my other thing.
Difficult. Yeah.
Here's my other thing. If year one they don't make the playoffs, it's an absolute letdown. That sucks. Don't fucking fire them. And the players will be saying it too. No, don't do that. That's stupid. Year two. That's the year for me that's going to be telling. I think that's the year where, okay, year one, let's say we make the playoffs, but we don't win a playoff game. Just like Bazakia, right? Different, but you know what I mean. If year two they go to the playoffs and they win a playoff game, year two is when I'm expecting them to start winning playoff games. That's the way I'll put it.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't make the playoffs in year two, yeah, let them go. If they make the playoffs but they don't win, it's like, man, they're right there. What are we missing? What are we missing now? Go get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a big part of it is go get the quarterback. Go get the quarterback and let things work.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of feel like the players vouched for for Antonio Pierce so hard. There should be no excuse why they don't make the playoffs next year. Like, surely you wanted this guy for a reason, because you think that you can win, and if you're thinking this as like a long-term move and this is just the player's decision, sometimes the players don't even know what's best for them. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying Antonio Pierce is not the best decision that they could have made. I don't want that to be misconstrued. I'm just saying, Max Crosby was willing to get himself off the team, or he threatened, I'm not going to be a Raider anymore if it's not Antonio Pierce. Surely you should make the playoffs next year. There shouldn't be, there should be, I would say, no excuses on why you're not in the playoffs. Unless it goes a certain way, you guys get the quarterback. He's young. Like, let's just say you draft Jaden Daniels and maybe struggles at the beginning of the year and then gets hot towards the end of the season. Then I could see it. Also, I don't know if 1 or 2 of my AirPods just died. Can you say something real quick?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say this really quick. As far as Max Crosby, I want to make it clear. Maybe I should find the tweet and send it to you, but Vic Tafer. Wow, that was mixing Tafer and tweet. I'm just gonna find it. I'm gonna send it to you. He said, and maybe I don't want to get it wrong. Okay, yeah. Somebody commented about the whole GM process right now, or maybe the coaching process. I don't know. Vic Tafer put out a tweet. I don't want to get into it yet. And then somebody comments, I thought Max was the GM, being sarcastic. Vic Tafer's response, quote tweeting him, was, take it easy on Max. He knew AP was getting the job. If Max Crosby knew for a fact, and maybe Vic Tafer's being sarcastic, maybe, and he's a reporter, he shouldn't do that on Twitter. That's just stupid. But if he's not being sarcastic, if he's not being an asshole, if Max Crosby knew, yes, Antonio Pierce is getting the job. He has assurances from Mark Davis. Why do the PR stunt? Why do the stunt to the media? Oh, if they don't keep him, I'm gonna. Well, he never said that he would request a trade. That was leaked from the media.
Mm-hmm.
He should have kept quiet because it makes it look like a bad PR for the Raiders. It makes it look bad. It's like, oh, and then it also looks like, oh, Mark Davis bending over for Max Crosby. It's like, if this was a PR thing or Max Crosby playing with the media or somebody's agent leaking something out, it's very possible this was Antonio Pierce's agent leaking this out. Very possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Thrash also says if it were the case that Max Crosby knew, then he wouldn't even have to say anything.
Right. Well, he gets asked about it, and he says, bear in mind, on Max Crosby's podcast, and whenever he was asked about it, they asked, if Antonio Pierce isn't the guy, what would you do? Everything's on the table. He never said, I will request a trade. Never said that. That was the media saying Max Crosby reportedly will request a trade or will explore requesting a trade. That was the terminology from Tom Pelissero or whoever it was. That's somebody's agent leaking that out. That's what that is. That was not Max Crosby saying that. Max Crosby said everything's on the table if AP is not the coach. That's what he said on the podcast. That was him responding to a question about that. But he never started this. That was the media and probably somebody's agent, which very well may have been Antonio Pierce's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess to finish off the Antonio Pierce thing, I say since it does not appear that Harbaugh was going to be available for the Raiders, I'm still worried for the Raiders' sake that he might end up in LA, which come to think of it, I think he might be better off going to the Falcons because he would easily be the best coach in that division. And he wouldn't have to battle Andy Reid and Sean Payton every year. I don't know. Yeah, I think Pierce was a good hire for the Raiders, and we'll see what he does with the team moving forward. Are you ready to move on, or you have one last thought?
One more thing. I didn't get to kind of respond to the Antonio Pierce has no excuse. I think you put it kind of.
Yeah.
Like, he has no excuse. He has to win, all that. I do agree he needs to go out there and win next year. I think every Raider fan's expectation should be the playoffs next season. But it's contextual. If the Raiders go out there next season and the offense sucks because it's in stage 1 of rebuilding, is that Antonio Pierce's fault? Not really.
I want to clarify. I don't think I said it. I don't think I said Antonio Pierce has no excuse. I think I said the Raiders have no excuse. There's a difference.
Okay, that's right.
Because they're the ones who are vouching for Antonio. And obviously Antonio Pierce is going to vouch for himself. But, the players can't complain that it's the coach's fault. That's the coach you wanted. It's like that one scene from SpongeBob. What was the kid crying about in the car? And then he's like, well, why did you ask for it? Oh, no. The kid had like pistachio ice cream. And he's like, I don't like pistachio ice cream. And then the dad driving the car goes, well, why did you ask for it? It's like that. The Raiders players don't get an excuse. And then Mark Davis, if he just, completely, bowed down to the locker room and, all right, if you guys feel this strongly, Mark Davis, at the end of the day, you're the owner. You're supposed to do what's best for your franchise, even if it's a tough decision in not getting the guy that everybody in the building wants.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on the Raiders players do not have an excuse next season and moving forward with Antonio Pierce. This was their guy. They all vouched for him. All right, let's get it going. The only aspect to me that has an excuse is the offense next season. If it's, completely starting over other than, Devontae Adams, Colton Miller, Josh Jacobs potentially. He's a free agent, so we'll see. And a few other players here in there, Jacoby Myers. You start over with quarterback. You get a couple new offensive linemen in there, maybe a new running back. That's a lot of, as I mentioned, turnover. We'll see how that goes. If it's a rookie quarterback, it's like I can't expect a rookie quarterback to go out there and be CJ Stroud. I just can't. That's not what it usually is. I can't expect a first-year starter to be like Patrick Mahomes and throw 50 touchdowns. That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. Those guys are special, and I hope we get the next special guy, but we'll see. It might be Justin Fields, and maybe there's a few bumpy roads along the way. But something else that happened with Antonio Pearson, he took over, was the offense got better too. So, right now it's about finding the offense coordinator, which goes into our next topic.
Yeah. But before we get into our next topic, we're going to go ahead and bring up a couple of these comments that I've been kind of putting off. Let me take some stuff off the screen. All right. Thrash says that he is absolutely a 49er fan who's not willing to admit it. No, I'm just kidding. Thrash is a Raider fan. So everybody take it easy. Don't throw your tomatoes. You can keep them in your hand. Okay. At least he's not a Cowboy fan. Party.
Yeah.
At least he's not a Cowboy fan.
But welcome to the party, Thrash.
Yeah. Also, Thrash asked, Mike, how do you feel about Telesco? I feel like we're going to talk about the GM candidates.
Yeah, I think moving forward, we're going to go a little faster pace here, and I'll get into the GMs at the end.
Yeah. So we'll come back to Telesco. And then also, Thrash also said, I wanted Pierce over Booger Eater anyways. Is Booger Eater, is that supposed to be Harbaugh?
Maybe.
Yeah, Thrash, tell me.
What are we talking about here?
Yeah. Who's the Booger Eater? I want to know. Yeah. Let me know. We got to this comment. I just don't see Harbaugh leaving Michigan, especially with Saban gone. I could see him leaving Michigan, but I said, to me, it's 50-50.
Yeah. I'm hoping this will be the last time we talk about Harbaugh. Like, if he gets hired by the Falcons or Chargers, like, we'll give him a minute. But now that it's done for the Raiders, it's like, let's just move on. But I will say this. I could see him staying with Michigan because that's what he did last year. He went and talked to the Vikings. It was looking like it's a done deal. He is going to be the Minnesota Vikings coach. And all it was a leverage ploy on Michigan. I want more money, right? And then they bent over and they gave it to him. Now I think he needs a new contract. They have an offer on the table. Now he's talking to all these NFL teams. What's he doing? He's gaining leverage, whether it's on Michigan, but also on these other teams, right?
Yeah.
If I'm positive it's not all about money for him, but also with the incoming probably suspensions and whatever the hell's going to go on at Michigan, he probably needs assurances that he's going to be good there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man.
Also, Thrash said, LOL, my buddy sent me a video of Harbaugh eating a booger yesterday. Well, he can eat as many boogers as he wants if he just keeps being a hell of a coach. Maybe that's the secret. So, Mike, I want you to go ahead and volunteer at our local high school. I want you to become a coach and, let's set up a little science experiment. You're going to start eating your own boogers and see if it helps you call plays. For all I know, that's Dan Campbell's secret, right?
Right.
Perhaps Dan Campbell is so energetic because of all the boogers that he's been eating.
Yeah, it's like it kind of it'll clear up the nasal passages. It gets you breathing better. It gets more oxygen to the brain.
Yeah, you sort of like, they say there's good bacteria. Perhaps booger produces good bacteria, and you're putting that in your microbiome, and just like like you said, clears your sinus. So go ahead and do it, and then we'll set up another science experiment where maybe it's not just your own boogers that you have to eat, but you can eat other people's boogers too. Yeah. We'll see if that also helps too.
Great.
Hey, I think we can all just be thankful, even if Harbaugh was indeed eating a booger. Hopefully, it wasn't somebody else's. That, I mean, it's already nasty, but we're talking like more than twice as nasty. Thrash said, "LOL, no kidding. He can eat as many as he wants." Yeah, Mike too. Mike, go become a football coach. And then also, Thrash says, "I feel Pierce has a season like Houston and get a wild card spot." Well, actually, Houston won their division, so I mean, what's just crazy is the Chiefs are in an off year and they're in the AFC Championship again and won the AFC West again. So it'll be interesting. You know, it's definitely a tough division because I feel like the Broncos and the Chargers, before you know it, are going to be competitive again. Then also Thrash said, I feel Max may have found out that Mark was going to bring in another coach, so Max said something.
It's entirely possible, but from what Vic Tafer tweeted, unless he's being sarcastic, you know, I have my feelings on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he picked his own. Fortunately, if you're going to eat them, at least let them be your own. That's awesome. Maybe in the thumbnail, I'm gonna put like Jim Harbaugh picking his nose, like with a finger just up his nose. Maybe I'll put that in the thumbnail. And then Thrash says, "Thanks, guys. Hope to be here often. If you're gonna keep providing excellent comments, we absolutely don't mind you coming in and contributing to the live stream." So yeah, we're gonna move on to our next topic, and this is our second to last topic before we get out of here. We're going to talk about the Raiders coaching staff updates. Mike, go ahead and provide what has changed and anything else that you want to add.
Yeah, we could kind of probably get through this pretty quickly. I sent you 2 tweets about this from Tristan Kuhn on the Twitter, the X. Okay. But the first move made by Antonio Pierce as head coach was relieving a few coaches of their duties. Prior, really the day after the final game against the Broncos, it was reported that, the Raiders let all of their coaches know, like, hey, feel free to seek other opportunities, that come to you. Don't feel like you're strapped to us. We might be going through changes. So, and immediately, our offensive line coach, I'm forgetting his name right now, but he went to the Giants. And the past 2 seasons, the Raiders had top 16 units with, on paper, not very good units. So I would say it's a loss. But to go into Tristan Kuhn's tweet, the Raiders have relieved the following coaches of their duties: offensive coordinator, interim offensive coordinator, and QB coach Bo Hardegree, Jerry Shuplinski, the tight end coach, Matt Lombardi, brother of the former offensive coordinator, Mick Lombardi, assistant wide receiver / analyst, Matt Edwards, pass rush specialist / D tackle coach, which is kind of interesting to me, Chris Ash, co-defensive back coach, another interesting, coach to let go of, and then Keith Hayward, defensive quality control. And then also the next comment is from him, just more context here. Remaining coaches include Antonio Pierce, Patrick Graham, which hopefully he stays, Kennedy Palomalu, running back coach, Edgar Bennett, hopefully he stays, wide receiver coach, very good coach, Cameron Clemens, assistant offensive line coach, who is a very up-and-coming coach. He's been with the Raiders since Gruden, and they've kept him around in, now 3 different, at least so far, 3 different regimes. So seems like a guy that's been, well-respected. He's been the assistant offensive line coach. Look out for him to potentially become the offensive line coach, period. Scott Turner, the pass game coordinator, Mitch Singer, offensive quality control, Rob Ryan, defensive assistant, Jason Simmons, defensive back coach, Matt Feeney, defensive quality control, Rob Leonard, defensive line and edge, coach. Tom McMahon, the special teams coordinator. That was a Josh McDaniels guy, but it looks like, at least as of so far, Antonio Pierce is going to keep him. And then Darius Swinton, assistant special teams coach, and Danny Amendola, returners coach. So far, keeping him as well. So that's some of the coaching changes so far, namely, the coaches that were relieved of their duties. And then, that'd be the next one. Just tracking Raiders coaching staff openings. Currently, the team needs to fill their general manager, a potential assistant general manager spot. I'll add in, they don't have a current president of football operations. That's something to look out for. Obviously, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, tight end coach, offensive line coach, run game coordinator, which would be potentially the offensive line coach, linebacker coach, defensive quality control coach. And then he says, again, this is all from Tristan Kuhn, at Kuhn Tristan on X. Unknown fully if the team will hire the following positions, though openings exist. Special assistant to the head coach, safeties coach, assistant defensive line coach, defensive run game coordinator. And is that it, or is there more?
I think that's it.
Okay, that's it. So
there's a following tweet, but
yeah, go ahead. Could potentially see the Raiders having an opening at offensive pass game coordinator, running back coach, and potentially assistant offensive line coach. Of course, all of the offensive coaching staff are subject to the approval of the eventual offensive coordinator. So we'll see with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing I have for this topic at hand is Patrick Graham. He has met with the Chargers once. I believe he is, scheduled to meet with them a second time. I could be wrong on that. But I know for a fact, I want to say it was Tom Pelissero, but I could be wrong, tweeted that the Seahawks are going through a second wave of interviews with coaching candidates, and on that list was Patrick Graham. So that list also included Dan Quinn, Ejiro Evero, and a few other coaches or coaching options. So scary. Losing Patrick Graham would be a massive loss for Antonio Pierce to start his tenure with this team, and I really hope that the Seahawks and Chargers don't hire him. So just something to look out for.
Yeah. Thrash also says, I wasn't a huge fan of Brasillo. I think we can get a better O-line coach.
I think so too. And again, Cameron Clemens could be a potential up-and-coming guy that is better. You never know. But you also have to bear in mind, like Tristan Kuhn said, whoever the offensive line coach is very likely to be the run game coordinator. So you probably want somebody maybe with a little bit of experience of that. I'm not sure if Cameron Clemens has that. And actually, sorry, I was wrong. There is something else that I want you to bring up here from Twitter. It's the Albert Breer tweet about the Steelers and Raiders.
Mm-hmm. And then we're going to get to Guarab's comment in a second.
Okay.
All right. So you said Albert Breer?
Yes.
Okay.
So, per sources, the Steelers and Raiders have put in slips to interview Rams pass game coordinator Zach Robinson for their offensive coordinator jobs. Robinson interviews with the Patriots tomorrow, previously interviewed with the Bears. Now, the Bears already filled their spot at offensive coordinator. I want to say the guy from the Seahawks. I'm forgetting his name. But point being here, now that the Raiders have filled their head coach position, they can look for offensive coordinators. I'll just give you a couple names to consider as candidates. Number one on my list, based off of things that I've heard, and simply wanting a coach from the Shanahan tree, right? And knowing that we're probably not going to get some other team's offensive coordinator. Like, we're not going to be looking for Ben Johnson or Dave Canales to come over and be our offensive coordinator. You probably have to look for like a quarterback coach or a former run game coordinator or pass game coordinator, right? So at the top of the list, Zach Robinson. The Raiders, that's the first official request that they've put in, at least per reporters. So far, so good there. Again, the Rams quarterback coach and pass game coordinator. Next on my list, 49ers pass game coordinator, 49ers pass game specialist, Clint Kubiak. Okay, again, Shanahan tree. Next up, Texans wide receiver coach / pass game coordinator, Ben McDaniels. Hopefully no relation to Josh McDaniels. From here on out, it's really no particular order. Really, the top two for me are Zach Robinson and Clint Kubiak. After that, there's no particular order. But Lions pass game coordinator Tanner Engstrand, Dolphins quarterback coach / pass game coordinator Darrell Bevell, Commanders, I would say, I don't know if current or previous, whatever you want to call it, offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, and USC quarterback coach Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, we had reports previously that Kingsbury is a guy to look out for. He had interviewed for the Bears offensive coordinator position. Again, the Bears have already chosen their offensive coordinator, and it's not him. So, one less other team to compete with for him or Zach Robinson or whoever else. So now is the time to start putting out those requests for the Raiders, and it's nice to see that they have for Zach Robinson. Hopefully they get some more guys in there and get that spot filled ASAP, because that right now, other than quarterback and keeping Patrick Graham, getting that offensive coordinator is the biggest thing, for this offseason.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Guarab says, the Raiders have bigger problems than offensive coordinator and general manager. They have no quarterback and are in the worst possible position to get a great quarterback. You can't win without one, period. And watch defense fall back again. Patrick Graham gone.
Yeah, I mean, again, if they lose Patrick Graham, that's a massive hit to Antonio Pierce. And yes, and that's the cycle that I was talking about with Josh, is the Raiders just keep finding their way to the 13th overall pick, the 15th overall pick, the 17th overall pick, at best, the 7th overall pick. And I remember last offseason, we hit January, February, and all of a sudden you get those stupid mock drafts that don't mean shit. And it was like, first overall pick, Bryce Young, or actually at the time it was the Bears. So it was, who did the Eagles get? The defensive tackle?
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, before he had his vehicle incident. He was projected to be the first overall pick. And then you go down the mock draft, you get to 7th overall, and it was Las Vegas Raiders, CJ Stroud at 7th overall. And I'm like, oh, that'd be great. Well, he went 2nd overall, dude. There's no chance, So, yeah, I agree in that sense. It feels like the writing is on the wall based off of the decisions the Bears have made in the past week or two, as far as who they interviewed for offensive coordinator, that they are going to draft Caleb Williams first overall. It could all just be a complete, it could be wrong. It could be wrong. It could be that they're keeping Fields and yada, yada, yada. But in my opinion, it's like Fields isn't guaranteed to be great. He hasn't played at a great quarterback yet. He's had his flashes, but he's a great mobile quarterback, right? Whereas USC's quarterback, Caleb Williams, it's like everybody's banking on him being his bona fide top prospect. If the Bears can get 5 years of rookie contract with him rather than just 1 year plus the 5th-year option for Justin Fields, it's like financially going the Caleb Williams route makes way more sense. But maybe they just want to win now and they keep Justin Fields. I think, to answer this question, if Justin Fields becomes available, he does not cost a first-round pick. And as long as it doesn't cost a first-round pick, it's worth it to me. Obviously, I'm not going to go and give up 2 seconds in the third. No, that's not worth it. But if you can give up 2nd-round pick this year, 3rd-round pick next year, I'll do that. Just for the sake
that might be giving up a lot.
It might be
for
a
a guy
lot, but
who's
it's
going to
like,
be expensive, but I
yeah,
just
but you
don't
still
know
have
if
2
Justin
years.
Fields would be like an answer. I don't know if he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's really like at the end of the day, if you're not trying to get a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, then what are you doing?
Right. I guess the way I feel about Justin Fields is, as I felt about any mobile quarterback, is they, they allow this extra element to the offense that the Raiders have not had since I've watched them, other than Terrell Pryor, who was not a good passer of the football. Whereas I think Justin Fields is just as good at throwing the football as Aiden O'Connell. So when you add that extra element, shouldn't that add wins? In theory, and then you also add a better offensive coordinator than Josh McDaniels and Bo Hardegree. In theory, it should work, but yeah, maybe Justin Fields isn't that guy after all. Maybe he's injury prone. Who knows? I would rather draft. Let's read this comment. I'm talking about we need Jaden Daniels in our division or Caleb. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not going to work with someone else's problem for QB. No retreads. We see how it never works. Okay, so like Jimmy Garoppolo, retread, doesn't work. Yeah, I personally, if I got to choose and in a perfect world I can make the trade happen, yeah, I'm going for Jaden Daniels right now. If the draft were today, I'm going Jaden Daniels. I'm trading up to wherever I can. The problem is the way that the draft order fell, it's like if the Bears do pick Caleb Williams first overall, the top 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. It's going to be Caleb Williams, and then probably, is it Washington at 2? I think it's Washington at 2.
Let me see.
Either way, it's Washington and New England. Flip-flopping, whichever way. One of them's going to get Drake May. One of them's probably going to take Jaden Daniels. Unless Michael Penix Jr. or some other guy comes out of nowhere, which I just kind of don't expect.
It goes Bears, Commanders, Patriots, Cardinals, Chargers, Giants.
Yeah. And
Titans.
the Cardinals would be dumb not to pick Marvin Harrison Jr. So our best opportunity to trade up is the Chargers at 5. Yeah, they're not going to trade with us. If those quarterback needy teams in the top 3 are dead set on whoever they're picking at quarterback, they're not going to trade back. The only way is if the second or third team is hoping for a specific quarterback and only that quarterback. And if that guy gets picked before them, then they take trade offers. That's the only way. But even then, they're gonna fake that, oh, this spot's too good for us, we can't give up. And then the Raiders are giving up 3 first-round picks, because that team at second or third overall has the leverage on the Raiders. So, yeah, I agree. The Raiders are in a really tough spot as far as getting a quarterback right now, which is why I kind of lean that Justin Fields is the more realistic and the more cost-efficient way of getting a quarterback, other than signing a Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins in free agency. Pick your poison. Tell me which way's the best. Do you want to trade a couple first-round picks to go get the rookie that'll last you longer? Do you want to just spend cap money to go get Russell Wilson and hope for the best? Same for Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins might be the best option, but how long is he going to last? How long is he going to last? And then we're right back at the same thing. In 2 years from now, we give him a 2-year deal. In 2 years from now, we're going to be coming off 10-win season. Maybe we made the playoffs. Maybe we won a playoff game. We're not going to be drafting a quarterback unless we trade picks. So if this is the year, if this is the great quarterback draft class that everybody's talking about, fuck the picks. Fuck them. Go trade up and get your guy. The only thing that sucks is those top 3 teams. They all need quarterbacks. So it's just a matter of if the opportunity is there. And the other problem, as far as Justin Fields goes, when does Justin Fields get traded? Is it day 1 of the new season, 2024 in March, day 1 of free agency, or is it day 1 of the draft? I don't know. I couldn't tell you right now. Couldn't even tell if he's going to get traded.
Yeah. Thrash also says, we have Scott Turner, who is the Commanders' offensive coordinator. Also, Mike Brunell, who is on the Lions, might work.
Yeah, I mean, those are options. I don't know how much experience Mark Brunell has at play calling. But yeah, Scott Turner currently being on the roster as the pass game coordinator is interesting, but I think the fact that the Raiders have put in a request for Zach Robinson tells me that they probably want somebody else at offense coordinator, and perhaps they like what they saw from Scott Turner and they decide to keep him as the pass game coordinator and work hand in hand with the new, offensive coordinator, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Guarab also, Guarab, we appreciate the long, these comments I can tell are very passionate too. So, we appreciate the comments and also by Thrash too. Yeah. We appreciate you guys contributing to the stream. Guarab says, the Raiders don't fix other teams' problems like Justin Fields. Sorry, it's called settling. Just to get by Justin Fields can't beat no one but mediocre teams. JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and none are consistent enough.
Yeah, once you get to the Bo
settling
Nix
at quarterback.
I completely agree. I don't want to settle. I'm tired of it. It felt like we were settling with Derek Carr, and once they moved on, I was like, you know what? Good, because he wasn't worth the contract. I want the next special quarterback. And if I'm being honest with you, especially right now with this team looking the way that it does on defense and having Devontae Adams and easily being able to re-sign Josh Jacobs, just go out there and in free agency, just get a few more pieces at offensive line and D-tackle. I think the Raiders can afford to trade up and go get their guy, Jaden Daniels or whoever. I think right now, if I'm being honest, I'm just talking about all this, the best case scenario, I know it's crazy, but the best case scenario might be the Bears keep Justin Fields and the Raiders trade up to first overall. But again, as we said, it's going to cost the same amount, if not more, than what the Niners gave up for Trey Lance. But if the team can win now and, Antonio Pierce getting his shot, let's win now. Let's go do it. Let's swing for the fences. I can appreciate it if it happens.
Mm-hmm. Guarab also says, it's funny to me how other teams wants a quarterback. They get a quarterback, comes to the Raiders. They have excuses why they couldn't. It's a joke, and I think the NFL plans it this way because they hate Mark Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Raiders have, for lack of a better term, reaped what they have sown. They have the mantra of just win, baby, and they try to win. It's like I've said on this podcast multiple times. They had that 2017 season going into the 2018 draft. I think the year is correct. Maybe it's 2019, but the Nick Bosa draft. The year before that, the Raiders were right there with the Cardinals for being the worst teams in football. I think it was year 1 of John Gruden. Maybe year 2, they just traded Khalil Mack, whatever. They could have lost to the Cardinals, and they would have absolutely earned the first overall pick. They weren't beating anybody else that was left on that schedule. But instead, they had this back and forth game at the end of the fourth quarter. Raiders win the game. They get the 4th overall pick. They pick Cleveland Farrell. If they just lost that one game, they could have got either Kyler Murray or Nick Bosa. Pick your poison. It's little shit like that the Raiders have done to themselves in the name of just win, baby. Right? And really, not many franchises are actually going to tank. Maybe sometimes you should.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, Thrash feels that Champ Kelly is going to be the general manager, and he's going to try and get Fields. We'll talk about general manager in just a second here. We're going to take these.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's 2 more comments, and then we'll get into the GMs. These will be the last 2 comments before we get into our next topic. Guarab says, you go and get your quarterback. If you don't try, then how will you ever know? Why wait till a bad draft of quarterbacks? Then the Raiders do Raider crap and trade up. That's what they do, and it's starting to look so scripted.
Well, hopefully Antonio Pierce can break the mold. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then just because we're still on the topic of Raiders coaching staff updates, I just got this tweet. This is from Tristan Kuhn, per Vinny Bonsignor on X. Marvin Lewis is joining the Raiders, likely as a senior advisor / special assistant to the head coach. I don't think I got to mention that, but that is coming.
Thrash also said, I really don't want Fields, but he could be our next LaMonica or something.
I'm honestly, maybe I need to watch more Justin Fields, but I mean, from what I've seen of him, it's like, do we really think the Bears were supporting him well? I feel like he has talent and he could be good. He's shown moments of like pretty. He's shown some good moments, right? I think when you give him Devontae Adams and hopefully a better run game and a better defense, I think he can get the job done. Do I think he can win us a Super Bowl? I don't quite know. But he's had a tough go with the Bears to where you can't answer that for a fact, you know? So I think in the essence of not giving up too many draft picks, Justin Fields is a damn good option. And young, way younger than, Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. If you want to go win now, if the Vikings let him go, okay, Kirk Cousins. Okay. But that's that last comment that we just had from Guara, that cycle of just the same retread quarterbacks, that's Kirk Cousins for you. He's going to get us those wins that probably need us or get us to the playoffs if he doesn't get hurt, but we'll never be able to draft a quarterback. It's like at some point you just got to pull the fucking trigger and do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll take the remaining comments after this next topic, so that way we can finish off the show because we've been going for about 3 hours here. We'll get to those comments in a minute. Mike, you wanted to talk about the Raiders GM candidates before we get out of here?
Yes. So per Vincent Bonsignor on X, the feeling in NFL circles is that the Raiders could be eyeing a front office that includes Champ Kelly and Ed Dodds. And we had a tweet, I think I put it up on the podcast a week or two ago, where Mo Moten on X was saying, maybe it's wishful thinking, but why not just get both of them and put one of them as the general manager and one of them as the president of football ops? Now you have two heads in the front office working together, helping Antonio Pierce, getting the personnel, get it going, right? Very possible. Okay. And then I think I might have sent you a tweet about the general managers from Tashawn Reed, if you want to put that on the screen.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah. We have two more tweets that I want you to put up, and then we're just about done here. So the Raiders have had second interviews with the following GM candidates: interim general manager Champ Kelly, former Chargers general manager Tom Telesco, and Colts assistant GM Ed Dodds. Owner Mark Davis has expressed hesitation to me last month about having a rookie GM and head coach pairing. Telesco has GM experience, whereas the other two have only been assistant GMs or for like 9 games an interim general manager. I can see the hesitation. I don't blame Mark Davis for being like, oh, man, like, putting a rookie head coach with a rookie GM, that's a lot of inexperience leading the charge. At the same time, you see a lot of these head coaches that get hired who have never been head coaches before in the NFL, and they just succeed because they're young offensive minds that just they have that what's the term? They're it doesn't matter. Like the Bengals head coach, they're just more current. They're not old school like John Gruden and Josh McDaniels. You know what I mean?
More modern.
More modern. There you go. So I think the same thing can be said about general managers. And then if you could put up the last tweet that I sent you, it was a really good point from Jimmy Durkin on X. Pairing Dodds and Kelly wouldn't make sense in his opinion. Both are current assistant GMs whose next natural progression is a general manager job with control. No reason for either of them to cede to the other as far as, decision-making and power over a team. So one of the two of them, either Champ Kelly or Ed Dodds, with a veteran personnel exec with general manager experience makes sense, a la Tom Telesco. So we had the report from Vinny Bonsignor saying, among NFL circles, it sounds like the Raiders are eyeing kind of a two-headed monster. Yes, I did respond. eyeing a two-headed monster with Dodds and Champ Kelly. But then to Durkin's point, well, why would they want to do that? Why would Dodds and Kelly want to work together when what they're striving to both do is become the top guy, the head honcho, the general manager of a team? I think you can have Dodds or Kelly as general manager, and then you can bring in Tom Telesco as president of football operations and have him kind of not oversee, but help the general manager, right? Because at this point, I don't see any reason to give Champ Kelly any role other than general manager. He was just the interim general manager. Prior to that, the assistant general manager. It's like demoting him would just be a slap to the face. Ed Dodds, assistant general manager. Giving him anything other than general manager, I could see president of football ops for him, but this is what he's been working up to be as a general manager. Whereas Tom Telesco was a guy who was just fucking fired. He'll probably take anything he can get. Right? He's got a lot of experience in the building in the Chargers, so I can see a pairing of Champ Kelly and Telesco, Ed Dodds and Telesco. And again, my feeling on Telesco, he's had some rough drafts, the past couple of years, but he built up some very promising teams on paper. He just had really bad coaches leading the way. Right? It was like a baker putting all of these great ingredients to bake a beautiful cake, and the guy baking the cake was just an absolute idiot that only knew how to make chocolate chip cookies. Right? That's their head coach, the idiot that doesn't know how to make cake. So, and Champ Kelly, he's known apparently for being very good with prospect evaluation, and to Thrasher, right? To Thrasher's point, Thrash. To Thrash's point, he was with the Bears before the Raiders, and he was with the Bears when they drafted Justin Fields. So there's a little connection there on maybe Champ Kelly was really high on Fields, and if he's the GM, that would be his guy at quarterback. It, again, cost efficient compared to trading up to first overall, right? Instead of giving up 3 first-round picks, you're giving up a second and a third, 2/3. I don't know, but that's way less than giving up a bunch of first-round picks, right? So it's all a matter of we'll see. For some reason, we haven't gotten a decision from the GM spot as of yet from Mark Davis and the rest of the hiring panel. Again, Champ Kelly was in the meeting or the interview process for the head coaches, which just tells me that they want Champ Kelly, but also I don't know. And then there's been meetings for the new season as far as, free agency and all of that. Champ Kelly's in there doing that because he's the interim GM. So, this is what the general manager is supposed to do. So when, I don't know, just the writing on the wall has been Champ Kelly, and then it was, it's Kelly and Dodds. But then I read, Durkin's tweet, and it's like, well, maybe Kelly and Dodds doesn't make sense, but we'll see. It feels like Mark Davis really likes Ed Dodds. Maybe there's other people in the building that say, oh, Champ Kelly totally deserves it, yada yada. Maybe there's somebody else in the building that says Tom Telesco deserves it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But at some point, this decision has to be made. We got to get on the offensive coordinator, figure out your GM, and let's get the offseason moving.
Yeah. We're going to take a couple more comments and, wrap up the show. We appreciate you guys, sticking with us. So Thrash asks, is that Rams coordinator we interviewed any good?
Okay, Zach Robinson. Let me quickly look him up. On the good old Wikipedia. I can't say that he's good, but you bear in mind what the Rams did this year. He was the pass game coordinator, and you had a rookie wide receiver in Puka Nacua break records, right? With Matt Stafford, who coming into the season there were worries that he wouldn't play again because of a back injury. That's Matt Stafford being an absolute legend, but I think when you have a pass game coordinator on a team that makes the playoffs and the pass game is very successful, and they had to deal with the Cooper Kupp injury, right? And, kind of changing the guards at running back. I'd say that they persevered. So he actually, as a coach, he's only been with the Rams. He was an assistant quarterbacks coach in 2019, assistant wide receivers coach in 2020, assistant quarterbacks coach in 2021, and then from 2022 through now, he's been the pass game coordinator / quarterbacks coach. So actually a pretty small resume, but he's been growing in that Rams building, and he's become a pretty popular name as far as, the offensive coordinator circles go. So, and again, it's the Shanahan tree for me,
Guarab says, it's embarrassing to hear "just win, baby" and commitment to excellence, almost like they're mocking fans with it. It should be torn down until they have 3 straight winning seasons.
Well, I think it's nice and probably good for culture to have, the past to kind of rely on and, refer to, and like kind of set a standard of like, hey, we have a standard here. Like our fans want to win. They are used to winning. I saw actually it was a TikTok today. You want to know the top 3 records? I don't know if that's the right term, but the 3 teams that had the most consecutive appearances in a conference championship game, and this might have been exclusive to the AFC because it is only AFC teams, but it could have been in the NFL history. Okay, let's just say it's AFC, just to be a little safe here. Top 3 all time. How did I label it? Streak in making the AFC Championship. Number 1 was the New England Patriots. It was like 7 years in a row. Okay. Maybe it was 8. Number 2, the Chiefs. These past however many years, I think it's 5 years now in a row, making the AFC Championship. Or no, 6. I think they just made 6.
I want to say it's 6.
Okay. Number 3, the Oakland Raiders in the 1970s from 71 or 72 to 77. 5 years in a row. Right? They only won 1 Super Bowl. They only went to 1 Super Bowl in that time because they had the Steelers and a few other teams, in their way at times. But that was the John Madden era. So that's the Raiders' past. And you have the 80s when they won 2 Super Bowls, right? It sucks because I haven't gotten to see that shit. But it's there, right? And I'd like to see this team get back to that. And I think Antonio Pierce is a guy who has shown potential to get his team to buy in to doing that again.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of rapid fire these last couple comments because I got to get out of here. Thrash said he couldn't believe that he heard Devontae bring up Cousins, and he doesn't want Kirk Cousins. To be honest, I think Kirk Cousins would pair up nicely with Devontae Adams. Like if you look at Kirk Cousins pairing with Justin Jefferson, Jefferson is able to be incredibly productive, and I don't see why Devontae Adams also couldn't be.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins provides an opportunity to have a really good passing offense. And I think when you add on the defense that we had this past 9 weeks, I think it'd be a good opportunity for success. But again, when he leaves in 2 years or retires or whatever, it's like, well, what do we do? Right? So I don't know where you heard Devontae bring up Cousins, but that's interesting. We'll definitely see. Free agency is only 2 months away. We'll see how it goes.
And then Thrash asks, who has been better at talent evaluation and contracts, Kelly or Dodds?
Well, that's a great question. And at the end of the day, I think the only people that can truly answer this are the people in the building, in the buildings. We could say like, oh, Tom Telesco is really good at, building up a roster and evaluating talent, but maybe he had an assistant GM that did a lot of the work. I don't know. I want to say the Raiders if it's Ken Herrick or somebody else who has a big touch on the contracts, right? Like there are multiple people in these front offices doing multiple different things. From what I understand, Champ Kelly has been widely respected for being a great talent evaluator. And what I like about Ed Dodds is his past history. Started with the Raiders, but then he went to the Seahawks for 10 years, and he grew under the Seahawks during the time that they won Super Bowls, right? Maybe he was a big part of that. I don't know, but I like what I saw from that. And then he went to the Colts. He's been their assistant GM pretty much since. And, they've done a pretty good job. So I can't answer that for a fact, but I think either of them are a good option at GM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Guarab says, Justin Fields is ruined. Trust me. Exactly. Kirk Cousins is the quarterback that plays well until it really matters, then craps the bed. Raiders need their own quarterback, big name coach. How about big name quarterback sells tickets?
100%. That's still why my number one option is Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm. Thrash says, I agree. I think Telesco has been good at picks and bringing in decent players, has had better first-round picks than we've had over the past several seasons. Yeah, Justin Herbert being one of those.
That's the funny thing about the Raiders, man. It's like they seem to have this standard of like, hey, play hard and physical. And, again, they get themselves to like 7-8 wins most of the time. And yet their drafting has been such garbage since even before Gruden that it's like, how are they even capable of winning games? Like if we had a general manager who's actually great at drafting over the past 6 seasons and drafting like absolute studs in the first round, we probably make the playoffs this year. So that's big. We got to nail it at GM. That's huge for bringing in personnel.
Mm-hmm. Guarab says, it's almost like Adams was being subliminal. He's prepping us Raider fans for Kirk Cousins, so we're not shocked when it happens. This is exactly what the Raiders do. They don't want us to win. It's obvious.
Well, I have faith that Mark Davis wants to win. It's just a matter of, is he capable? So.
Yeah, Thrash says, the blonde lady that does that Raiders show has a show with Jones, and they had Devontae on. Way too much trade talk. So that's probably maybe where he may have hinted at Kirk Cousins, but I don't know.
Right.
I
know what show
check
he's talking about.
Mm-hmm. And then last comment of the day, Guarab says, Kirk can't big the win. Can't big the win. Kirk can't win the big one, though he fails in big lights. Adams said Carr is a Hall of Famer. He loves AOC. So what do you believe? It's just a guy trying to be nice. What else is he going to say?
Hey, when Adams is behind a camera, is he going to say a bad thing about a quarterback? It's a matter of what does he say behind closed doors to Antonio Pierce, whoever the offensive coordinator is, general manager. So,
yeah. Anyways, we appreciate Thrash and Guareb and Joel and Mr. C, everyone who tuned in and shared thoughts on the show. Yeah, we finally made it to the end of the show. Hope everybody really enjoyed it, and we'll be back next week, hopefully celebrating the 49ers going to the Super Bowl. If not, Mike will be celebrating Detroit going to the Super Bowl, and I will quit the show. And Mike can host it by himself because he's a Detroit fanboy, and this will be the Blue and Silver podcast. Right, Mike?
I mean, it's funny you say that because the Bears are blue and silver, huh?
The Bears? The Lions?
My bad. The Lions. Jesus. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, you don't even know who you're rooting for.
Before we go. Wait. Hold on. I might have saw something. Ooh. Well,
Thrash just left me thrashed.
This is like, I guess, developing from 48 minutes ago from Dove Kleiman. He just tweets, what is going on with Giants tight end Darren Waller in his recent TikToks? He's kind of doing some weird stuff, but it's probably having to do with his music, but Interesting. Hopefully he's okay.
Yeah. Hopefully. But until next time, if they get weirder, we might discuss it. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Go Niners. And, I'll catch you guys on the next show.